welcome to FaceHammer Live. It's
Hello.
Saturday. It's an interesting day. It's
It's
gone.
Friday.
I want it to be tomorrow. It's been a crazy day, right?
Yeah, I've kind of seen it by proxy. I had a super busy business day, but I've being in some groups, I've seen much chat and more confusion, I think is probably yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to start off. We're going to talk through some news. Then we're going to get into the FAQs, which come out today, and talk through some of the key changes and what that means and thoughts. Hi, Luke. He's just come for the drums. And then once we've done that, we're going to take on the show's topic, which is, are the gods too powerful? You have a poll, so feel free to vote on what you think. It would be interesting to see how many people are going to say ban them all.
We talking about gods here or special characters or uniques, but
all
which
of them.
is it?
But God,
All
we're
of
going
them.
to talk about God tier ones, which we will clarify when we get there. And then obviously it's end of August. There's been quite a few events. There's been some podiums.
Yeah.
There's been some successes. There's been some not so successful runs with armies. Hey, just play. So we're going to talk about the meta as well at the end and talk a little bit about the roundup of events and what finished where and what we've noticed in the UK. And it's slightly different to the rest of the world, but a couple shout outs and a couple things. So okay, so a bit of news.
Special characters are banned.
FaceHammer GT update. We're banning. No, we're not. So the FaceHammer
because we got such a fantastic reception for our heavy-handed, already pre-existing comp. We're going to wade in there like a wrecking ball. No special characters. If your model's got legs, you can't put it in your army. And if it's got an attack profile, it's banned.
Oh, just anything that makes me feel powerful. It's fine. No. So only like models with tails are allowed. Yeah, we're gonna go for there's still tickets left if you want to come along. There will be a little bit of
a couple, yeah.
We're gonna maybe adjust it depending on what happens with the FAQs, which we'll talk about, just to stop stacking wards, basically, which is we'll get into.
And other and something else.
and
spoiler.
more anti-lumineth rules.
Spoiler. Yeah.
I'm hoping it's just it'll get sorted out by the studio, to be honest. But there you go. So if you want to come, Element Games, links in the description below.
Yeah, there are literally a couple left, I believe, at this point. So would love you down. Squeeze in there while you can.
Yeah, I know hotels are very expensive because there's some sort of flower show on or something. I don't know. Not normally in September.
They had its FaceHammer.
Yeah, exactly. GW bought all the hotel rooms to stop people attending.
Bloody stupid time for a flower show. Let's go in the season where shit starts dying.
Yeah,
like mega amazing. I know lockdown happened, but still, Well,
it's obviously still popular because all the hotels are stupidly expensive. So a little bit.
Is that Richie or which just play do we have?
I guess it's Richie.
Sorry, Russ, go ahead.
So a little bit update for patrons. So I'm currently got some work in progress. Some of you might have seen this dice cup at Carnage. Leather dice cup. It's handmade. It's very dark and there's a few changes to be made to it. But essentially, this is one of the Patreon merchandise things I'm working on. So I was just chatting to actually the guy making it before I went live, choosing the color because it's a bit dark, so I want to light it up a bit. We got some stamps, so it'll be embossed rather than this is like laser etched, so the logo is very dark and you can't really see it. So I've got some more cups being made, and we've got some other stuff being made in the works, which I'll keep secret for a moment. And so if people who want to qualify for that, if you're on the second tier or higher, after a period of time you'll be sent a merchandise package. So and one of the things I was just saying, we are sold out of templates.
You waved you.
Yeah, we will be getting another wave. And they'll be slightly different because you don't need the smaller ones, and there'll be a slightly different price and things like that. We're just working out the details. So watch this space. But thank you for everyone who's bought a set, because we sold out, and this really helps us because it supports us directly. So yeah, 2 guys, 1 cup. We're not doing that video. Oh
You need to
god.
make a cup, mate.
Yeah. You do after your day. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so
I've also been we're working on some stuff that is to do with the FACEHAMMER trophies. I've had a few questions about that. Still super secret at this point. We're trying to do something pretty special, and some experimentation there will probably make its way into some stuff for the Patreon tiers as well. Once we've done a bit of playing around, but it should be pretty special and unique as well. So excited for that, but we're keeping our lips closed for now.
Yeah, so obviously it's a couple of weeks away. There'll be some change of the event as well, because I'm going to be running the results through on Tabletop TO, or whatever that software's called. I think it's like TTTO or something like that. What's quite cool about that is Steve Curtis, big shout out. He helped me sort of like go through how to use it and stuff. And I've got a spreadsheet, so we're doing that. And also Alex who ran the Mancurian Carnage is going to be doing us a pub quiz on the Saturday night at FaceHammer, because it was exceptionally good. And he sort of offered, and I said, yeah, fine, go ahead. So there will be a pub quiz on the Saturday night, along with the painting competition and other goodies. So if you want to know more, the pack's linked. You can read it and see what's going on. I'll probably put a revision to the pack in a week or so. I want to see what happens with the FAQs. Who knows? Who knows? But the comp's not going away. Just say that for now. So it's only going to get tighter. But there you go. What else I can say about that? I'll just leave it at that. And Byron's gone to the beach. So moving along. So before we get into the FAQs, I wanted to talk a little bit about some news, which is a little bit disappointing, honestly. You might have missed this because I saw someone mention it on the Discord. I won't credit you because I've forgotten who it was, but thank you, whoever did. We rate Gryph-hounds a guide to cutest and most ferocious Stormcast Eternal Companions. Now, why on earth am I talking about this from a match play competitive AOS
You're losing
channel?
me. You better go quick, dude. I'm beginning to fall asleep.
So cuteness, no, right. So I'm not going to go through this article. So basically, at the bottom of the article, tucked away, is this little note here. And it says, while we'd previously hoped to be pouring over pages of Gryph-hound-based content in the new Stormcast Eternals Battle Tome this month, not even Sigmar's Chosen are immune to ongoing global disruption. Rest assured that the Stormcast Eternals and Auric Warclans Battle Tomes will both be available to pre-order in September. Obviously, originally that was August. I think it was even before that at some point, but
yeah.
Please note it says pre-order. I didn't even know they'd be able to purchase them. So I don't know what's happening, but obviously there's delays. Obviously, COVID's a thing, stock and all that kind of stuff. So, hey, Carl. So I don't know, but it was a weird place to put it. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Just be direct. There is a delay. People want to know about it. You are willing to let people know about it. Don't make it like finding a needle in a haystack. It shouldn't be a quest to find the information to then get people making it more publicly known on forums rather than you handling that directly, is my opinion on that one. But of course, the moment it does come out, we will cover it, as soon as possible. We thought we'd be covering it now, but the moment it's there, we will do so.
Yeah, I know, Jack. Me too. I've been waiting. I've been Warhammer Plus also launched Wednesday. Obviously, actually was fairly. I found it fairly difficult to find out how they signed up for it. But there is a big banner now, so a bit disappointed. I'm not going to get my model for a year because I don't have the 40k app subscription. Apparently, if you had the 40k app and you just sign up, even if you pay for a whole year, you don't get your model for another year, which is kind of annoying because I wanted the Mega Boss. So in a year's time, I probably don't want the Mega Boss. So I don't know. Well, hopefully,
Blacksmith. Oh, I would always want that Mega Boss, but what? Warhammer Plus sounds like too much fun for me. I'm not into stuff like that. So
Yeah. And there was the preview of Old Bear Lie, which was on. I'm not going to give you my opinion on it because it's a subjective thing, but you can go and have a look and see it there. And I haven't actually watched any of it yet, even though I've subscribed. Which
I mean, Frank, it's too much fun unless it's people dying and written by Brandon Sanderson. I don't particularly go down that direction for fantasy stuff with my hobby.
But it's not
nerd out and read the rules. Look at the covers on my army book covers. That's about it, really.
It's good that they're actually doing something different and trying something out. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out over the course of the months. But it's still very good value. If you use the apps anyway, it's good. It's almost like the same. So it's worth doing. So you get a £10 voucher as well if you sign up and stay signed up till like mid-September. So it's worth doing. I think you've got to sign up before the end of the month this month though. So even if you sign up, I think you sign up for $4.99 and then you could cancel and then still get the £10 voucher. So you basically make £5 on the web store. So, or you could just order from Element at 20% off. But
if you order a £30 voucher from Element Games now, you will receive it now and you can spend it soon.
Wow, can't believe how much of a
chilling, mate, chilling for life.
So yeah, we won't go in more about news. We're going to get straight into the FAQs.
It's not particularly our bag, is it? Let's get into nerding out over anally retentive, obsessing over the order of sentences and the points of grammar within rules. It's very exciting like that. Let's get on it.
That's why we spend.
So there's a link at the top of the chat for anyone who wants to see this. Scroll up to the very, very top. First link that Russ put in is there. Thank you, AUS Shorts, for being super helpful.
Yeah, and I can link it again if people need it. But
I'll do it.
Thank you very much. So you can go to the Warhammer community website. People who don't know, I'm sure everyone watching this knows. You go up to FAQs and downloads, FAQs, and there's a list. Age of Sigmar, and then you've got all the FAQs. Now they've been updated today, so let's get into it. I'm going to use the PDF that Dan from AOS Shorts has put together because it's bookmarked and it's a lot easier for me to navigate. So we'll go straight into there.
Gabe's become militia. Hi, Gabe. Whoop. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Gabe. So this is the core rules. So these updates. So this is all the PDFs in one file, and if you click on the little bookmark, you've got all the bookmarks. So I'm not going to go through everything line by line because basically the changes are in magenta. So that's what we're going to talk about. Because we assume that you read the last lot or you're up to date.
Yeah. Even some of the ones in magenta are just for some very niche questions that aren't particularly relevant. So a small amount of this stuff is worth discussion, in my opinion.
So yeah, I mean, like this is all very much like tidy and stuff. So there's a question about if an ability gives you to receive a command ability without a command point being spent or without a command point. Basically, does it apply that you still can't use it more than once? Yes, it does. So it's just that some of the people, the formations, you could have kind of thought that it kind of loopholes the rules, so you could do it twice.
Yeah,
apparently not.
Where do we start then? What number do we start finding these of consequence to us?
I don't know. I've not actually had time to read these yet, so I'm going to go through and have a look. And before someone says I'm a playtester, so I might tell you something. So basically, redeploy. You can't shoot. That's fairly obvious. Can you go up halfway up a wall? Yes, you can. If you jump down from a terrain feature distance to the battlefield greater than the unit's move, can you jump down if distance you're greater than the move? No, you can't. So if you're on you could climb up a wall, but then you couldn't jump down. But I guess you could climb down. I don't really get that.
Yeah, well, you can be partway down. I think it's just one of the things we're using subjective pieces of terrain, aren't we?
Yeah, but it says yeah. Anyway, it's kind of contradictory. I don't even know why the jump down rule exists, but anyway. Again, I think that's the same question, but Yeah, again, I don't think there's anything much interest in here. So this one here is probably the most interesting one. So what happens if a model making a pile-in is equally distant from 2 enemy units at the start of the move? It must finish the pile-in no further from each of those enemy units at the start. So what this means, I've got a little... You have to bear with me here. I've got a whiteboard because it needs this.
It does. I'm also closing my mouth until Russ says I'm allowed to speak.
So let's say you have a model like this. This is Archeon. We'll just take the extreme examples because that's what we do here, like big hot takes.
Absolutely.
And then we're gonna have
start bullying Lumineth. Go on.
Yeah, I'm gonna because that's all I do apparently.
It's relevant.
So and let's there we go. We got some more coming in. So then we've got Spirit of the Wind. Okay, now hopefully this whiteboard will let me copy and paste. It doesn't. Okay, that's fine.
You should have picked the pooest thing in the book, so we're not bullying it.
Well, it could be any Hurricane unit. Okay.
Yeah.
So what this is for, okay, is if you were, for example, fighting 2 different units, there can't be 2 models in a unit. Okay. So you got a Mickey Mouse. Okay. So when you pile in, what you could have done, if you thought about it, you could probably have piled in around like this because you're still base to base with one of the things. So that was kind of the thing. But what is now is they're 2 different units. You can't actually move because, but if you pile in this way, you become further away from this unit. And if you pile in this way, you're further away from this unit. So effectively, you've got pinning. So pinning was a thing in the last edition, but you needed you could do it with a unit with just multiple models. Now you need 2 different units. Now, what you can do with the Hurricane Temple, or whatever they're called, the Helen, I think it is, they can pile in away from the enemy. So
also, particular to Lumineth, they can activate 2 units at once, can't they?
Yeah.
Or by 1 unit, then the other immediately.
So you could charge in half an inch, charge in half an inch. She'll go, you go, right, I'm now going to activate both my models. I'm going to pile in away. So they're exactly 2.99 or 3 inches away, just on the cusp.
Stick. Yeah.
So they're exactly that. So when I go with my Archeon, my 2-inch reach, I can't. Yeah, you could fly. You could go opposite side. It doesn't. You could be here. You could be here. It doesn't really matter. The point is, you could even be as long as you're the opposite side, you could be anywhere. So you could be like this, and then Archeon can't pile in this way, and he can't pile in this way, and he can't hit anything to his reach, so he's trapped. So that's what that FAQ means. Obviously, it's a bit of a fringe case, but with Lumineth, it's particularly abusive because they don't have to pile in towards you. You can also do this with 6-inch pile-in move stuff, like zombies.
Because you could pile in from 6 to 3.1 inches closer and do that 2.9. Having left,
it's a little bit harder to set up because you almost need 3 units to do it. Because obviously
you don't have the dual activation.
He'll get to pile in. It's difficult because you can only move towards, so it's kind of difficult.
Yeah. There shouldn't be room in the rules for something like that to happen, though, in my opinion.
No, and again, it's what happens.
A backwards step and draconian wankery from bygone days.
I get why it's there. Like in every normal situation, it's probably the right call. It only isn't the right call when you've got stuff that can pile in away from you. That can be activated twice. So, because Lumineth break the core rules in so many ways, it kind of becomes a problem.
Well, if you're going to put in fundamental principles of the games being broken, then when you release stuff, things will get around it because they don't follow the core rules.
So I don't know. I mean, flagged it up, so I don't know if it can be sorted out, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I think it's not an ideal situation.
No, I think it's very easy to say with stuff like this, well, just don't put your big monster in the middle. But what if you're playing a scenario where
you don't have a choice with
with
Lumineth, do you? That's the problem.
No, very often not.
With a normal unit, it's not a problem because they've got to finish within half an inch when they charge you, and they've got to pile in towards you. It's only stuff that doesn't obey those rules. But even with 2 6-inch piling units, as soon as one piles in within basically within 3
Go that
inches,
way.
you can then activate next and just pile it anyway
Yeah.
before this unit passes. So it doesn't really make any difference. You can't
Yeah.
then pile it away. So
Unless
it's
it was your
only
turn and you had an ASF unit, that would be
yeah,
the
unless you
non-lumineth
made them
example in
go
which it can happen.
last. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
you got
Oh,
a
actually,
unit
yeah.
that's stroke fast. So you
Yeah,
you
well,
know,
that's fair. There's a spell that can. There's a couple of spells that can do that, isn't there? Or effects.
because I don't think Sinesh has got anything now. Have they done? They've lost this Seeker Cavalcade. They can't do it anymore, can they? 6-inch pilings.
The long pile in. I think they're not in multiple places. I don't believe, but you do have an ASL spell.
Yes,
And
you could.
the situation's
I mean,
the
you
situation
could.
still stands if someone's got like 1 inch reach on a large model, and you go first with Sigvald, let's say, and put in you've wiped out something that he charged with another unit or something like that. You could charge the Doom Prince, wipe something out, take him in, and then do your first activation because you've done your ASF ones prior anyway. They're all niche examples, but Lumineth's kind of.
I think the difference with Lumineth, there's no like the other ones. You have to kind of play around it, and you have to have stuff near it that you charge something and you pile in, and then you charge 2 things that aren't the thing, and you leave it exactly that distance away, which requires your opponent to have done it. So, you could have like a string. So you could have like a unit of 5 guys, like cavalry, 2 units of 5 cavalry. Like you could use Hellstriders. You could have Archeon or a giant and 2 other things. You could charge these 2 things, and then when you charge, only one model has to be within half an inch. Then you could tail out to be 2 things exactly 3 away from the other thing. Well, 299 away.
Yeah.
Tag it, and then it can't move. So
yeah, that's a pretty techy
but
application.
I don't have a big issue with that because this unit is in combat with something else that can kill it, and then just casualty removal, and then you've got units that can come in, and it's almost like you have to play for it. And if I'm playing with this army, I could just make sure that isn't set up like that by putting a unit next to this and just be like, well, go on then. But then the other thing will hit you. So, what are you going to do? So I don't know. Like I think the problem with Lumineth is because they've got these foxes and the wind chargers that can move
and
so fast and double activation.
Yeah.
You can't really stop it. Especially if you're playing Sons of Behemat. If you imagine if you're playing Sons of Behemat and they've got a wind charger army, I know they've got some 3-inch reach, but I think Richie, that's what I would have said, of just pick one of the units to pile in towards. That's how I would have ruled it. And actually, I was asked the question, in the lead up before this, like what I would say, and that's what I would have said. I would just said, just pick the one that you go towards, so there's no pinning. It does create the fringe thing where you can slide out of combat with something else, but I'd rather that than this.
Yeah, I think so. Right on. Anyway, that it seems strange, and like I said, it feels a bit draconian. Feels like we left wankery like that behind in the last edition, so not particularly down for it in the games.
No, exactly. It's not it's not really where we want to be right now. So
no,
next,
no, not at all. I don't think.
The next one that's causing a bit of a fuss is ward saves. So
14.3.
So some people are reading this that, and if you read it raw, probably right, is that if you have something that is worded in the old way, so like new words rules will say it's a ward save, and that just tells you how it works. But the old wording was, the old wording was basically let's negate a wound that's been allocated. So this is more for things like Manfred's, like Armor of Temple Hoth and bounce things and stuff like that, like bodyguard rules, anything like that. So so it's like you're meant to not, so with the bodyguard you don't make the ward, it bounces, then they make the ward if they've got one. So like if you're using like Immortech guard, it's off the top of my head, but this is kind of suggesting that if you've got the old wording, you could have multiple ward saves. So like I think
multiple after saves.
Yeah. So one ward save but then negation saves aren't saves, they're not ward saves, because it just doesn't. I think it was meant to clarify something else, but then it's caused this problem. So basically, there are people saying that you could have like 3 5-up after saves on the Great and Clean One and Legion of the First Prince, which is like
Yeah, it reads like that.
Yeah, it's basically Gabe what you say is like correct Hawkeye doing it. The core rules cleared it up, but then they uncleared it. So
yeah, agreed.
So I
Bit of a
would,
fuss.
I would, I would assume that that's not going to be a thing, and it certainly
Yeah.
would be house ruled for FaceHammer if it's
Then,
not been
yeah,
corrected.
it's
So
in the core rules. And the core rules of the game is not having more than one after save. So
yeah,
yeah, that's how it will be for FaceHammer, and hopefully will be
hopefully,
clarified.
I'm sure they'll get round to it, to looking at some of these issues that have been flagged up to sort them out. So, um, so there's another thing in here. So Sylvaneth, there's some stuff which needs to
Some
be
woody issues.
sorted. There's some issues with woods. So this question here, it says, some factions add terrain features to their army. It sort of says, do they follow the same rules? And it says the placement restrictions, and it's yeah, but then if the placement says in your territory, then that basically means that it's going to override wildwoods being put anywhere but your territory. So I'd imagine that's going to go away as well. But
Hope so. Seems a bit heavy-handed, doesn't it?
yeah. Then there's some stuff about garrisons. I don't really get that question, but sort of stuff I haven't seen this because I think the people sent questions in and they've added them in, but I didn't. So this one here, so which is it's the way I've always played it. I know that technically, if you were reading the maths, if you're using like actual like logic engines of points and stuff, then technically a objective that's on the border between two territories would be wholly within from a pure mathematical kind of point of view, but actually it's not. They're not wholly within; they're just within. So some of the missions they say take objectives that aren't wholly within your territory. Any that are on the border are okay, which is always kind of how good. Yeah, Gabe, I'll get onto that. And units can't contest more than one, so models in a unit can't contest more than one, which we knew anyway. Some of these are fairly obvious to me, that's why I read it and go, I don't know, that's a question, because I think they obviously they get emailed in and they get added if there's enough.
Yeah,
I
presume if it's been asked enough times from different sources, then obviously it's it warrants having a response.
Endless spells. So do things that increase the range of a caster spell apply to endless spells? So that's things like Arcan the Black. Yes, it does. That's quite nice. It was a little bit unclear. I'm never quite sure because it said like to his spells, and it's like, is it a spell or is it an endless spell? Because they're two different things. Are they two different things? I don't know. But yeah, apparently it's fine. Invocations, they do count towards the prayers that the priest can chant because a lot of the War Scrolls say this is a prayer that creates the invocation, and I think it was a bit confusing because in the past you could do them in addition to your prayers.
Yeah.
So it basically, this is one of the things that affects Khorne quite a lot because I used to run a lot of them, and then it's like you had like multiple blood boils and you could put the Rafax and stuff down, and you could do like your brazen armor from a sort of priest. Now you can't. You do one thing, so it's like they've lost so much power. I mean, it's kind of nice because it opens up your hero slots, but honestly, it's a bit of a tax, really. Then this one is about units of monsters. So this question is about can you carry out a monstrous rampage with each monster in the unit? Yes, you can. So if you have 3 giants, like 3 man crushers, they can all do a monstrous rampage.
Yeah, if you pay to have that many monsters, then you should absolutely be allowed to do that. I think that's fine.
Yeah. This one's has a bit of implications for Lumineth, I think. So many rules state that a model becomes a keyword or is a keyword, where keyword is monster, hero, or wizard, or priest. Do these models gain the rules applied to the relevant keyword? Yes. However, if a rule allows one model in the unit to be a keyword, only that model gains the relevant keyword. So Lumineth champions are wizards. So I believe that says they're still a model with the keyword. So I still think they count as a wizard and can get the spell lore and stuff. I know there's a lot of confusion about does a unit count as a wizard? Can they pick a spell? Can they? I think it's fine there. It's kind of, I think that clears it up in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not entirely obvious, but that's how I read it.
Yeah, saying when is it applied would be another way of it, because like one model in this unit, does that happen? Oh, I'm in the battle, it's this model, or do you presume it for the purpose of picking spells or whatever? But nice to see it cleared up. But
And it looks like Wildwood and Impassable rules can't be demolished with Monstrous Rampage. I'm not sure I've seen many people playing scenery rules, so I'm not entirely sure it's relevant, but whether that's just people just not wanting to think about it or... So,
I think
I
that's
don't know.
they'll come in as people feel less overwhelmed by the amount of new stuff.
Something about profiles, I don't really know if it's that relevant. Can you take Battalions more than once? Yes, you can. Enhancements. Flaming Weapon, can it be used on a mount? Yes, it can. Are unique units allowed to take Universal Spell Law? No. We don't care about non-match play stuff, sorry. Then the mount trait one, which is a big one. So mount traits, can you pick one mount trait, give it to a eligible hero? Hero cannot have more than one mount trait in the army, cannot include duplicates. So there was a lot of people running multiple Metal Cruncher Ogres, which is the D6 mortal wounds at the start of the combat phase. So obviously that's...
Shame on you.
Yeah, that's gone away. So
Guys, if you're ever taking something like that, you're an idiot. Okay, it's not going to stick around. It's obviously not going to stick around unless you're trying to win the ETC. You are literally going to train yourself into bad play, bad habits, and you're building patterns and associations in your head whereby next time you get into combat, you can be, I'll do this, and then you won't, and your damage will be less against unit X or Y, and you are detraining yourself from good stuff if your concern is how to improve at the game.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's like if it's allowed and you can do it and it's the best thing, then like do it. I think
it will make you worse.
I get what you're saying, but like at the same time, like you're still using. It's not like you've gone out and painted a whole army for it. If you've gone out to like.
Yeah, I know.
So I get what you're saying.
Everyone knew though, right? Especially in that example, that particular example. I don't think anyone doing that thought anything other than I'm going to get away with this while I can. But you're literally making your play worse for the future by doing something like that. Slap yourselves. It's bad. It's really bad.
Yeah.
You're going to be a worse player, and you won't know how to play your army as well afterwards. You will have lost playing ability.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal.
Yes. Not maybe. Yes.
No, Nick, I don't think you do. Because I think Arcan is taken for many different reasons. So, yeah. I mean, I think like if you, it seemed like
and that rule still sticks around.
It seemed like a loophole, didn't it? I mean, like, and you can, if it's there and it's okay. If it was FAQ to be fine. I think when it's not, when you're in that grey space of it looks like it's okay, but we're not sure and there's no official answer, then I tend to err on the side of caution of using it. Purely because if you do it and you win games or an event with it, you almost invalidate it by if it gets ruled the opposite way. Obviously, like if you go into an event, email the TO, if they say crack on double meta cruncher, fill your boots, then I don't have any problem with anyone using it. I don't think you're an idiot for doing it. I just think you're just playing within the rules that you can play in. So it's
destination over journey. Well, I mean, to take the example,
some
of
people
Arcan,
don't care about the journey.
Yeah, Arcan stayed like he was, isn't he? So don't think like Nicholas wasn't an idiot for taking it. He's practiced with rules that he's going to get to continue using, and he knows how it plays. Whereas other people have practiced with stuff, and when you put your Stonehorn into something that you put it into 3 weeks ago, that combat's going to go very differently. So
I think it's almost inherent in the game now, though. Like there's so much stuff in the game that changes so regularly. Like even just forget about a stupid example like that, to use a word. But if you just think
absolutely.
Like even like a little change, like I don't know, like after saves, not a little change. I know I'm going to be told it's not a little change, but a change like that massively affects the balance of what can kill what's useful, what's now viable. I mean, Arcan's a great example. Like if you with his change to his staff, he's now going to function differently, but because of the change to Relentless Discipline, his stock's still there, but then Catacross stock's gone up, so maybe you start taking Catacross over Arcan. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I agree.
can see that.
Cogs really needed to be sorted out.
Did Arcan lose his spells? Did I miss
No,
that?
he can't multiple cast Mystic Shield anymore. So
Okay.
in the previous FAQ, Nagash had a ruling on his staff where he could only do Arcane Bolt,
Arcan was left.
but Arcan was left alone. So when I took him to Carnage, I could multiple cast Mystic Shield with Arcan. But in the same FAQ, when we get to OBR, they've had other changes which makes the Relentless Discipline work differently. So basically, like, I knew what was coming, and I didn't know if it would be out in time for the event. So I hedged my bets and took Arcan, because if the RDP thing was not going to be in place, then at least I had Mystic Shield spam. So I kind of played both sides of the field. Yeah, that was just me having the foresight and to know, obviously. So, but coalition units. So there's some updates on here. So basically, they do not count towards the number of battle line units in your army. However, they do count towards the maximum of a leader, behemoth, and artillery in your army. Coalition cannot be generals. In addition, coalition units are ignored when determined if the units are eligible from a single faction. Now, one thing that's a bit weird is that they can still be reinforced like battle line, because they're still battle line. So if you have a coalition unit of Chaos Warriors and you want to run, I think they're min-size 10 now, 30 of them, you can run 30 Chaos Warriors if you want to spend so many points on that unit. 600
makes sense. I mean, you can if you have coalition Chaos Warriors, they still a battle line if your opponent's picking a battle line unit from your army to be killed and stuff. So I think that makes sense.
So I'm not going to talk about some of these little things. Sinessa is a wizard. Obviously, you always knew that was. It was just missing the keyword. Now, this is probably one that doesn't require talking about. So, the Wildwoods have been changed again. They were sort of changed in the last FAQ from Kragnos, and they've been changed again. I believe, and I might be wrong, someone have to correct me, that you used to, in the last version of the scroll, you could set up 3 individual parts in 3 different places. Now it says that it's of 1 to 3 pieces. For the Awakened Warriors, more than 1. Each piece must be set up touching all pieces. So that's gone away, because what people were doing, they were taking 3 of them. And I know I can't say 3, but the 3 semicircles, and they were setting them up as independent Wildwoods, because the previous scroll said you could do that. Now this one says no, they have to be touching. So you get 1 Wildwood, whether it's 1, 2, or the 3 of them. Now the problem is, what happened is, obviously Sylvaneth don't lose line of sight from it, because they can see through it. One of the things that's happened is they put the Realm Root rule on the War Scroll here, and it's gone. And the FAQ for Sylvaneth says ignore that. So it's quite far down. There's obviously like a lot. So it says in here that navigate. So here it says navigate realm routes, delete this battle trait. It's replaced by the rule on Awakened Wildwood scroll of the document. But if you go down to the Wildwood, it's missing.
No more.
So obviously, that's probably a mistake. I imagine that would be changed. So if you're a Sylvaneth player, I wouldn't worry too much.
The intent is not to stop your army from functioning.
And no, exactly. And for like FACEHAMMER, if that's not in place, it will be in place. So if you are coming to FACEHAMMER and playing Sylvaneth, don't worry, your woods will still work.
Actually, there's no way of saying you can play your army. You'll be fine.
You'll be fine. I'm not going to get quite to that level. So that's Kragnos. Beast of Chaos. Elite on Dragon Ogres. Something about shooting. Okay. Blades of Corn. Obviously, there's stuff about Coalition. Legion of Chaos rules. So I don't know what this is on here. Hang on a minute. Can I include units from the Slaves Darkness, but do not have the Mark of Chaos keyword? So you need to have the Mark of Chaos keyword. So you can't coalition in Untamed Beasts, I guess, because they don't have a Mark of Chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was as was anyway. I think.
Yeah, but I think some people ask a question like,
Yeah.
can I include them because they're save status? But
Needs this and that, not or.
yeah, and I think sometimes so judgments delete all rules. So I think this change was I think I talked about it in my article actually, where I said that there's a role to see if they disappear, and that's basically been removed. So they don't have that anymore. Whereas like every turn you have to see if they stay on. I'm gonna get that wrong now. Again, I'm not looked at Khorne too much, but so delete all rules. Judgments use the rules for invocation in the core rules. So I'm pretty sure that in the core rules, your invocations don't have this disappear roll, which is in the core book. You had to roll a dice and roll like a 5 up. If a priest was an 8, it's on a +1. Yeah, it's good because like you were like, well, it's a weird timing and stuff. So I think it's just been deleted. Obviously the rules for summoning them are here, and the bit I was talking about earlier about the rules, it says this invocation is summoned with a prayer. So it says it's summoned with a prayer. So that basically means you have to roll your prayer as an answer value, and that's your prayer for the turn. So if you summon Hex Gorgeous Skulls, that's your prayer for your Slaughter Priest. So it's that's why the question earlier was saying, do you take up your thing? So okay, Brandon, I have to get to that. You have to enlighten me on that. So when I get there, unless I've already gone past it, but I don't think I have. So I appreciate this might be quite small for people to read, but you can follow along. So again, Coalition. One of the things with Demons of Zinch was quite funny. Was people were saying, can I ally in Zangor from the Coalition in Zangor from the Beast of Chaos book, because they've got the Zinch keyword and they're actually cheaper than buying them directly in the Disciples of Zinch battle tome. But they've added in on the where it talks about the beast units, they've added in the beast rule, which I'll find at some point, but it is in there. Because I had someone ask me.
It was always going to be a thing, wasn't it?
That does not have the Zinch keyword. It's added there. So Legions of Chaos rule. I knew it was added somewhere because I had a question on a comment earlier. So horrors, quite a big one. Got a new war scroll. So I'm not sure if it still fits onto two sides of the card, but it's they have a new. Obviously, there was a lot of issues with horrors, like with how they worked in the new rules. So they've got their new war scroll. So really, the big thing here is that when you pick them, you say they either split and split again or have petty vengeance. So basically, you're always going to take split and split again unless you haven't painted the models. Basically, they're no longer wizards. They don't cast spells anymore. The standard no longer brings back models. It's just on a 3+ you get a fate point. So you can't use a fate dice for a 1, bring back pink horrors. So that kind of helps sorting that out. Then you've got this. Each time an iridescent horror, pink horror is slain, it does not count as being slain. So it says it does not count as having been slain. So you can't rally them back because they're not slain. But you remove it
remained in spirit
and replace 2 blues. And each time a blue unit is slain, it's not count as slain. You remove it with 1 blue brimstone horror. They can be rallied. So it's kind of, yeah. I don't know if, I guess you're right, Nick, if you just take brimstones. I didn't know if you could still take brimstones separately. It's been a long time since I've looked at the sort of, I never see them individually. I used to see them quite a lot individually, but I've not seen them anymore. So basically, they've got slightly different replacement rules, which is the same as it uses 1 inch of the position that was occupied by the model they're replacing. And again, the 3-inch thing. So basically, that is... It solves a lot of the issues with horrors. I mean, they're still good. You still generate fate, but you lose the ability to basically cast spells Use the one on the banner, get D6 pink horrors back, rally pink horrors back into the unit, and things like that. So,
Yeah. It's still the cheapest wounds in the game by a country mile, right?
yeah, and I think it's a good point for Nick saying that they don't have to take battle shock because they don't count as being slain. I guess that makes sense. So,
Yeah, no, it does actually, which is that's a large way that people used to be able to get rid of them, is go in, hit them hard enough that they literally, you would double your damage effectively.
I think
So,
they're like very unlikely because you're always either immune to you've always got to be able to go immune or I mean, like, yeah, very fringe. But it does make
but at least it ate a resource, didn't it? If people had to burn a immune to battle shock on it. And my way to deal with them was to plow Sigvald in, kill 18 and make them take a test at a big debuff, or use up a dice on it. Sorry, a resource on it. So yeah, that's kind of a plus as far as they're concerned. Like vanilla survivability, I would say that's a plus.
Yeah,
Like that's better than what you got from Rally.
That's a good point from Brandon as well. He says that each time an iridescent horror or pink horror is slain by a wound or mortal wound. So if you've got something that just removes them, like pick up, and they've not been killed by a wound or a mortal wound, they've been removed.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. Good insight.
I don't know, Molodov Gaming. Can you coalition a Gaunt Summoner on disc of Zinch in a Zinch army? He doesn't have the mark of Chaos keyword, but has the Zinch one. I would say that if he's not in the profile of his Disciples of Zinch, no. But I imagine that's probably a oversight. What I'll do, I'll pass that on to Sam and see if it gets rolled up, because that's a very fringe case that it's these things. You got to remember that the game is extremely complex, and you've got over I know when I started off in doing the South Coast comp back in AOS Wild West, I think there was already over 700 war scrolls.
Cheers, Brandon.
So yeah, maybe Gabe. I haven't looked, so yeah, it's one of those things. If he's in the Zinch book, then he's in the Zinch book. But I think the Gaunt Summoner on disc maybe isn't. I don't know. He might. Anyway,
how the people in the chat feel about those horror changes? I think that you still take them for exactly the same reasons that you took them before. It's just you don't get the bonus wizard bit or them coming back. They're still going to come back and Legion the First Prince, aren't they, and stuff like that as well. So
the fate point
won't return slain models.
The fate point won't be useful because obviously you don't use it. Personally, I like it because one, it means that they don't have quite as much of a feel bad. I think if you played someone who really lent into the abuse of the rules, and I say abuse, but it was legal what they were doing and not abusing the rules, but using the rules to the most effective. Yeah, using them in the most effective way, it could feel particularly egregious. I think it makes them less of a feel bad, but they still do their job, which is they still, because a lot of people cast with Forest just to generate fate points anyway, and they still are a tar pit and they still shoot. So I still think they're good.
Tar pit and the shooting is the major thing that I think makes them particularly good. Still the most efficient point wounds in the game by a large degree.
And I think that's a great point. You're still going to take them, right?
Yeah.
I think they're only marginally worse in terms of power, but they're massively better in terms of NPE, if I use the term, which is the non-player experience.
I think there's they just got harder for me to deal with my army that I'm playing currently. Actually, strangely. So yeah, boo.
Yeah,
they have 0 killing power. Since no more +1 to hit, and they less reliably give fate points. I think their killing power is just sheer weight of crap attacks, and them being slightly less crap doesn't, they have a huge amount of shooting, a colossal amount of shooting. and it wasn't its quality that made a difference. It was just how much of it there was, and they still have a huge amount. So, them being 33% less effective as far as the shooting goes, I still think they're very efficiently pointed for how many wounds you get, how much shooting they do, and how hard they are to shift.
I think they probably did a bit too much damage before. It's just probably the issue. We'll see.
Yeah.
Time will tell. Hopefully, we'll see some difference in battle line units being taken. It might be nice.
I don't think that this changes anything for that,
really,
but they
no.
are less egregious, in my opinion. We'll see. Could be different. Could be acolytes everywhere.
Could be. I'm not so sure.
Of course there won't be.
Again, it's just the coalition changes things in there. For Skaven, I don't think we've got anything too juicy in here. Giant rats, do we care? No.
Was there a Gaunt Summoner thing that was mentioned? What's this?
Oh, it's to do with the coalition rules in the. We just talked about it, so.
Okay.
I think, unless someone wants to tell me, but you have to do it a bit more. Yeah.
Specifically,
the Scry Orb changed the rule to add 1 to save for attacks to target's model. In addition, once per battle, you can pick an enemy unit within 13. Takes D6 mortal wounds, but for the rest of the battle, you cannot use the ability to add 1 to the save roll. So that's the old Death Globe, isn't it?
always like their artifacts.
Yeah, I think that's because Brandon. That's because they use the Host Arcanum, where they become battle line and they get to summon a unit. So I played against the Host Arcanum and they still had horrors, but I know there was a list with acolytes because they're cheaper. But it'd be nice to see. Like, I don't think you see Zangor. Maybe you will. I don't know. So next change.
Not these days.
Archeon, Eye of Ed Sheeran. Once about the start of your hero phase, you can say that you use the eye. If you do, subtract 1 from hit rolls until the next hero phase. So it's a once per battle, -1 to hit at the start of your hero phase until your next hero phase, rather than every time you hit on a 6, basically, you had to re-roll it. So obviously it had the old wording as well. It didn't have the word unmodified.
Yeah.
So... or so it was like not unmodified 6s or something. I can't remember. The basically it was a way you could turn off. Yeah, it was something to do with timing, with triggered abilities on a 6 to hit, but it's irrelevant now. That's why it's changed. Varangard.
Some units needed their 6s as well.
It
felt a bit bad, didn't it? Some units only really do their damage on their 6s.
Varangard are elite. It looks like the Mutilith and the Slaughter Brute have got the Mark of Chaos keyword added, so that means they could be coalition units. I'm still not sure you'll see them on the table, but there you go.
Game-changing stuff.
More just tidy up, right? So
yeah.
So
nice to see about the Vanguard though. Always felt a bit weird that they were.
Yeah,
they were unable.
I mean, technically, like with OBR, you couldn't use your Stalker's ability, but not that anyone played it. I just didn't mention it. See if anyone flagged it up. Yeah, Gracie is just the armor save. So Relentless Discipline, OBR.
Go.
I'll talk about this a bit. So the paragraph has been added back in. I don't know if I can say that, but it was there originally. The restriction that you cannot use the command ability more than once in the same phase does not apply to command abilities used with Relentless Discipline. For example, you can use Shield Wall on Mortek Guard more than once in the same phase, as long as the command issued by models has not already issued one and is not received more than one. So that basically means that you can use Shield Wall on 3 different units of Mortek, or you can use, probably the most important thing is you could use Unstoppable Advance on multiple units to get you the movement.
Big deal.
Yeah, it's good.
OBR OP?
No, but actually useful now. And Catacross has gone up in stock, in my opinion, because the Relentless Discipline resource is now more valuable, and he generates so much. Can you actually use
as many as you generate?
Yeah, easy. Because you can literally go 4 units, move +3. You can actually use the +1 attack on multiple units. You can use the so you can actually now, if you have 3 catapults, they can all get +1 attack. rather
Just
before
want
you
to
could
run
only
up
do
there
one.
extra fast, get into combat extra quick. Yeah,
It
start
makes
plowing it.
a huge difference. No, it's fine, Gracie. It's not stupid at all. I'm pretty sure it's just armor save. So obviously, Arcan the Black Staff, he can't do Mystic Shield multiple times. So there we go. And the elite keyword added to the elite units that couldn't actually issue, which basically the Hekatos units, because in the old book, Hekatos was the keyword that gave you the ability to issue your command abilities, and yeah, so kind of cool. I don't.
Luke, more on that later in this this episode.
Yeah, we will get into that. That's the next topic. I don't think there's a lot more to go into.
No. Do any of the viewers think differently? Let us know if you think there's something that we should be touching on that we've missed, because it's very possible that we have missed it. So give us a shout, point it out.
Because I just think that most of the other stuff to do with code. Oh, Marathi, Rend is now 2. She's had the Rend go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Yeah, I agree with reroll saves take too long. Even with OBR actually. Yeah, Gits did get nothing, of course.
I was just gonna say, I was about to make that joke. You just got in
sorry. Magmic invocations delete all the rules. Yeah, there's something about Longshanks, which is just, I think it's because it's the wording on move, so it said move, but that used to include everything apart from charging.
Yeah.
Now it's like it specifically mentions the different types of move.
They can go through each other now. Cool, nice. Giants stepping over giants
because there's no
Hallow Heart spellcasters.
Because with giants, you used to have stuff to do with wounds, what you can step over, what you can't, and now it's just that's been removed, so it looks like you could just step over everything. I guess. It's just changed the rule. Yes, it's not even a part of it. Ignore other models. Yeah. Yeah,
I think they literally get under their own feet in games quite regularly because of the way that you run them. So that is somewhat relevant, actually, for sure. The height limit. That makes
I couldn't remember what the wording was. Whether it was a wound characteristic or, of course, it was a random height. Yeah, why not?
It was over 4 inches or 6 or something, wasn't it? Sky vessel disembarking still doesn't work unless.
Yeah, that's the Carriage on Overlord change, which we're getting to. So, or not lack of change, I should say. I think there's quite a lot in KO, actually. We'll go on to that in a sec. Idnef, yeah, that's why they're not being seen. So, can you control end spell from spell in a bottle? No. If I use Fly High to disengage with a unit, can the unit still shoot or charge? It can still shoot as per disengage, but cannot charge. Can I use Fly High instead of making an on move that is granted by an effect? For example, can I use Fly High instead of moving with the Scent Tracking Battalion from pitch battles? Is there always a breeze? Yes, you can. So you can use the pre-game move from the such an idiotic thing, but the Alpha Beast pack, because those are tied to Behemoth keyword and the boats of Behemoth, and then they're not beasts. They can use the pre-game move to fly high and drop down on the sky. So you can do that before you have your turn.
Mega niche.
So there is a little bit of a niche there. It is quite useful for getting an Alpha Strike, and I think if you've got Barracks Ilfin as well, you could basically use 2 things up in the sky. And then something about setting up a battle regiment. This is if you have a flying transport, can you set the units up inside the garrison because they go at the same time? Technically, yes, you can. Now, one of the things that is missing, is you can't. The wording on the boats. This is why I've got it as an FAQ errata in my tournament pack. It says you can get out if the boat doesn't move, and then the boat can move afterwards. But because you leave a garrison at the end of the movement phase, your opportunity to move the boat has disappeared because the phase is over. So you can never move the boat when you jump out. But I've errated it you can for FACEHAMMER. I was hoping it'd be in the FAQ, but it's not. So I don't know. So Maybe it'll get added later on, I don't know, or maybe it just like it won't, and it's just something you have to live with. Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of about the keyword for.
Ideneth Turtle can't take mount traits anymore.
I'm not sure that's true.
Actually,
I don't know why that the language on that, because obviously it can. Why wouldn't you be able to?
Clarify, Nicholas. Go for it, mate.
Nothing to Luminef. Seraphon. Does Coalesce 2 to mortal wounds? No, thank God. It's got the priest keyword on the Engine of Gods because it needs more. Why not?
It does. They need help.
Oh right, you're saying mount traits are only for heroes. Okay, well, I would say that the rule for the turtle mount traits in the book overrides that because it's outside of the core rules and it's not been removed. Because the rules in the Broken Realms Marathi for mount traits on Ideneth haven't been removed, right?
Yeah, and that'll override.
And that'll override the core rules.
Yeah.
I guess. I would assume that's exactly how it would work. And I'm assuming that you will be able to do it because why wouldn't you? So, yeah, we talk about Silverleaf. I'm not going to talk about Legends because let's be honest, it's not relevant. So cool. So some big changes in there. Obviously some stuff that has a big impact. Yeah, I didn't bother talking about Stormcast because like what's the point? And over the Warcast.
Fingers crossed.
So, but we might be using it in that phase. Well, we probably will be using it at FaceHammer now. So
no, not optional at this point.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be out in time now. It was 4th of December, September's the cut-off. So yeah, because it's not out for pre-order this Saturday. So yeah, it will be the old book. Sorry, not my fault.
Would love for it to be the other way around.
Yeah, I would. I'm currently this isn't actually for me, but I'm working on this boy. So I've got a couple of these on the go. I've got some my personal ones as well. I've got some, so quite looking forward to getting the Iron Jaws actually painted for once. So just waiting for that Warclans book. I think the thought of painting all those Death Rattle skeletons has killed me. So I keep looking at the big assembly pile and deciding like I don't know if I want to do it. So yeah, I will get it done eventually. But so that's basically the FAQs, right? Covered.
I think so.
Done.
Yeah, there's like five significant bits. Hopefully, 3 of them aren't as they are rules are written.
I mean,
but
I think
personal cabbages.
I mean, hopefully they'll be. I'm not going to be too critical of it. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of heat online, a lot of noise, but honestly, it's like there's so much to talk about and sort out. It's no big deal. So, what are we talking about now? We're talking about super characters, right? So
yeah, let's do it. So an event. I think it's like not. This isn't the reason we're doing it, but of note, an event took the approach of just banning uniques recently. That's right, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think it's one by the Weapons Guild 10 guys.
Yeah.
There's quite interesting results on the poll from 97 votes. So leave them alone, 39%. Yeah. Fine, but some comp needed, 29%. Just stop the big ones, 18%. Ban them all, 12%. Love it.
Surprised they just stopped the big ones is that high. Otherwise, as I would have expected. Interested that some people hold that opinion. Maybe they've had their faces bashed in by Archeon on repeat or something. I could see why that would change your mind.
I think as well, like if you were used to old Hammer, like they were not used. Like fundamentally, I think that's because the rules were particularly unbalanced. I'll use that term. Yeah. But I don't. I mean, personally, I don't think they should be banned. So
No,
yes,
not at all. I think that's a little heavy-handed. I mean, you didn't even ban Gochik, right? And you've got zero love for his
I really
existence. So
wanted to.
why would you take that approach with changing it?
I didn't want to upset too
Don't
many
worry, I
people.
got. Don't worry, I got his back. Classy
Um,
Badger. The Loon King is the hero of his heart. He can be a super character.
yeah,
That's
I
fine.
think this is different because there's obviously the unique keyword ranges from stuff like the Loon King to the Mask to Ritz the Rat Prince, all the way up to Archeon and Nagash, right? So banning just uniques across the board is probably a bit heavy-handed. I mean, and I think it's probably a
It's
good,
even character as well, right?
yeah,
Like that's why your unique shit is meant to enter by unique characters. They're really important for it. They're what lends, specificity to particular armies and allows you to lean into stuff that might be to do with the background or the fluff or just particularly interesting or fit thematically with the entire intent of their book. This guy helps people come from the sea or the board edges or whatever it is, charge further, something.
yeah, and I personally think that unique characters add a lot to the game.
Yeah.
They always one of the good things about AOS is that they can't obviously have enhancements and things like that, so it does have a little bit of a neg on them. I do think that obviously there are some that are particularly powerful, and I think this has been compounded with the rules in AOS 3 and the battle
Yeah.
pack in Gur, where they said in the lead up, monsters to feel more monstrous and heroes to feel more heroic. The problem is when you've got an already titanic monstrous hero that is also, it's a god level unique that's also a monster
Yeah.
and also a hero. You've got this compound effect of monstrous rampage, finest hour, titanic duel, heroic healing. So you've got your heroic actions and your monstrous rampages,
Yeah.
but on top of their rules. Whereas normally we're used to them just being what the War Scroll says, right?
Stopping there. Yeah,
Which is
and then use the rules in the game.
yeah, which I would argue is how they're pointed. Because obviously, like, I know that there was a talk about a flat increase on things with those keywords. Whether they got double bubbled, I don't know, because they didn't go up by enough to make, like, you look, take Sigvald for example,
Or
went up 5 points,
yeah, the consistent.
and
Yeah, he
like,
went up by 5.
Nagash kind of stayed around the same. I mean, he was
Yeah,
expensive anyway. But obviously you got like the miscast rules. So I think personally, and this is just my own opinion, like, I like them in the game. Like, honestly.
yeah, me too. Completely agree. And the ones that are really expensive, I think I don't think people judge them fairly. And there are ones that are problematically efficient for their points. That's a separate discussion. But when you're looking at something that is around 900 points, what could you get for 900 points? How much of an effect would that have on the game? And then objectively, like it can only be in one place. Separating Marathi, she's an issue. It can only be in one place, but you could get like 3 really good, significant board affecting things. One of which is super resilient, one of which casts a load of spells, one of which like shoots from range or whatever, for 900 points quite easily, and does this thing that you spent the points on do all of that?
Yeah, and like and I think what I think the issue is, you can either deal with them or you can't, right? And some
And
of
not
them,
dealing with them is a fine way to still win the game.
yeah, it is. But I think that sometimes, like, because they break the rules mostly, right? So
Yeah,
like most of the
unique.
god level, and we're talking like Archeon, Marathi, Teclis, Nagash. I could say Kragnos, but I don't really agree with it. But and
Alario,
Alario, they kind of break the rules in different ways, in a unique way. Bellicor, probably another example,
yeah,
which I really like. I like what they bring. I like the uniqueness. I like the flavor. I think it's important to have these dramatis personnel in the game. Like on
yeah.
the field, like, models are gorgeous. I like the idea of it, but I can totally understand why they feel oppressive. And I think what they do is they kind of take your generic battle, if you don't have them, and they turn it on its head in terms of how you deal.
Yeah.
You almost have to play a different game, right?
For the same reason that Mega Gargants are strong. We've not seen that many wounds in one
No.
model in one place that scores like that before. And it is a proper head screw to try and work out how to beat them because it's so unique. And it's kind of comparable to the god characters.
No, I agree, and I think that's the key point: is that people, when they learn to play against Sons of Behemat and they realise focus fire them down one at a time is the way to play them, you're gonna and not trying to do chip damage spread out across the army, because if you do that, you're gonna get so far down the game you're gonna lose on objective play.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a good point by Luke. So some people just like not being able to kill things.
Yeah, very good point.
And I think that that's almost maybe a bit of a hang up of when you're playing the game and you're like but if you think about, I don't want to use the lore too much, but if you think about the background, like, should Nagash be easy to kill? Should Archeon be easy to kill? Probably not, right? So
also, how much effort does it take to kill 900 points of resilient battle line? And that's probably about how much effort it takes to kill 900 points of Archeon, right? If I gave you 900 points of Chaos Warriors, how much hitting would you have to do to kill them?
Oh, well, not a lot if you ask James Box. Although he did put them on the 12-inch line, and I got into him with my Stonehorns. I know I'm only joking, but yeah, it was good. But
quadruple metal cruncher, right?
No, nothing like that. I only took one of each because I'm a fluffy boy. Because I knew it was changing, so I didn't bother. But if I was allowed to do it and it was FAQ'd, I would definitely do it. So, but anyway, no, it's fine. It's totally fine. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think like the problem is they can feel very oppressive and very powerful, and it's almost I hesitant to say it, but you can see that, like, you have when they talked about battalions of have and have nots, and super characters almost feel like a have and have not, because not every army has them, right?
Yeah, and the book they go in matters, right? So I think that you touched on something really when you say it's important to have unique abilities, but because it's one model and it's not a book, it means you can put something super special in, but everything in the entire army doesn't benefit from it. So maybe you get to do something really wacky, but it doesn't break the game. It almost breaks a model, so to speak. But when you drop that into Siege, for example, that has super powerful other stuff going on, then you can guarantee your fate dice use on Archeon or whatever. Maybe that's where it starts feeling oppressive.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest issues is, and I know it's been touched on, is save stacking.
Yeah. Crazy. It's countering Rend, I think.
Yeah. Kind of. So you the way it's worded in the book is you would add up all the positive and all the negative, and then whatever the balance is, that's what it is. So although you can only be at +1, so say for example you're Rend 3 and you've got +4 save, that's a net +1, so you're on a 2+ save.
Yeah.
So your Rend 3 is basically useless. And then you can re-roll ones in Zinch, I believe, or if you've got so basically it's a 2-up re-rolling ones. It's basically you're not going to do much damage, and then what you can do is heroically heal the wounds, and then Archeon's got his head that allows him to heal. Plus, you can use fate dice for putting people in the sword, and you've got the agendas and stuff. So there's lots of ways to buff him. So
Life Swarm, blah blah blah.
Archeon is kind of crazy. So I think really maybe I think people are focusing on the wrong thing when they talk about the god level. Like, I don't know how you feel about it.
Can I kill it?
Yeah, I think for me, like, the issue isn't because actually there's other things in the game. So if you ban like those heroes, right? Let's say hypothetical. If you ban those heroes, there is still stuff in the game that can be oppressively good. So for example, 20-inch Chaos Warriors, right? There's 40 wounds. They've got a 5-up ward. They could get multiple pluses to save with oracular visions, with demonic power for the rerolls of everything. You can
And they're
go
in
Mystic
sync.
Shield, and they're in Zinch the reroll ones. So they become very, very resilient. Now, you can do the same thing with OBR. Obviously, like, shield stack is gone now, but you could have gone if you had the ability to go like all out defense, but you can't with OBR. But they get rerollable saves, so with more tech, so then you could Mystic Shield them, and before you could stack that, so you could mitigate the range. So it's pretty horrendous. So I think, yeah, it's a good point, Nick. He's always got Locust as inch. So I think that the big characters are like the focus because people they do stand out. They're big models. They're kind of in your face.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the problem. I think it's the save stacking is the issue.
I would agree. And the ones that the haves and haves not of the big dudes, it's save stacking combined with a way to sort yourself out if your saves don't work out, which could either be healing or it could be after saves or other stuff like all the ability to bounce wounds to people or other things of that nature.
Yeah, and Billy Bob, we talked about shrug stacking already, and I don't think it will be a thing in the future. But it's not. I don't think it's. I think it's just an error, and it's being read correctly in the words, but I think it's not how it will end up being. So I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah.
I think that the save stacking is like I think what would be the easy thing for me if I was changing it, I would say add up all the positives and negatives that aren't rend, and then get your net save, then add rend. So if you had +3 save, you'd be at +1, so you'd go to a 2 up. Then if you got rend 3, you'd go back to a 3 up, 4 up, 5 up. So rend still matters.
Yeah, it's been kind of rendered a bit less useful.
Well, I think the problem is when you're a monstrous hero, you can go all out defense, finest hour, Mystic Shield, +3. So it's not even difficult. Every army can do it, apart from OBR. But every army can do it.
Heroes because you just stand on a piece of terrain, right?
Yeah, that too.
Oh, I rocked up. I charged last turn. I had Mystic Shield. It's my turn now, but I'm in combat, so I'm on a rock. Yo, like +2 done for 1 CP. It's pretty efficient, isn't it?
Yeah, and like it's fairly. What's good about it's reactive as well, so you can wait till you be declared as the target, then do it.
Yeah,
it's always like
some pixel agenda, and you're like finest hour or.
Yeah, and I don't want to see like special heroes dying quickly, and I think that's why Marathi is quite an elegant piece of design, in that she can't die quickly, and it becomes a bit of a head scratcher in how do I deal with her.
Yeah, would love it if she was 4 wounds instead of 3. At Turner, that would be elegant in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that the with any comp or changes to rules, so like you say, yes, Gary, we have talked about it. So if you do any comp or change the rules where you say, right, we're going to ban uniques or ban the god tier or change this, change that, what you're effectively doing is you're changing the goalposts, but there's still going to be broken and good stuff in that meta. So when I used to run South Coast and do the comp for that, the comp was done purely to shift the goalposts from the internet meta so you couldn't just Google top tier list, because I changed the in the old edition of Warhammer you had to comp every event comped. So I would change the rules enough, scenarios or composition rules, to force you to think about the tournament and come up with a new list or write a new list or tweak an existing list. But if you took a net list, it wouldn't be designed for South Coast GT. It would be designed for a different thing, or the GTs were different, or so you almost had to adjust every event and anticipate the meta, which from a competitive play point of view and a skill point of view I think list writing was really was a skill.
More rewarding, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
if your thing is trying your best to think your best and plan your best about the game, then you had to do those things well. And if you didn't mind particularly, then you just still turned up and had loads of fun.
Yeah, and I think that like the comp was interesting because you could pull different levers to get different effects, and you could react very quickly. And I always, whenever I run a tournament, it's always an event I want to play in. I don't like throughout AOS 2. I never did any comp. I think AOS 1 I didn't do any comp, and the reason is because the end game, the meta of the top end play was something I wanted to play in.
Yeah.
Hand on heart, right now, I don't want to play in it out the book.
No, there's a very small amount of extremely effective things that are making a huge potential difference, or rock paper scissoring things to a degree which is a bit mental, I think, currently.
I think there's just so many things that if you play it a certain way can be abusive, but not everyone does play it that way. But I almost feel I kind of akin it to driving around Monaco's Grand Prix going really fast using a handbrake to try and take the corners. It's almost like you need to you're going to hit the corners and you're trying to you're basically hanging on to this element that's always going to be slightly wrong or broken because it takes time to fix it. So because officially for GW there's just a practical side to doing FAQs, to doing updates and to rolling them out. It takes time. Whereas I can be very reactive, and that's the reason that did it. But
people can vote with their feet and their wallets in that case, oh well, I don't like those changes. Okay, don't go to that one. I love those changes. I'm super excited. I'll travel 5 hours to get to that event. And if you think that their house rules are super interesting, or because they've banned super characters and you're like, wow, what does that change?
That's and nice. I think it's I think super characters, I think it's fine. If it's unique characters, I think it really hurts certain armies. Like Sinesh are just like, I mean, they're already bad, but
half the size of the Stormcast book. I know they're getting a new one, but
I mean, they don't care anyway because they've got so many things. They can lose half the book and still have plenty. I think the problem is, like, if you take Sinesh, for example, like not having
remove Sigvald or Glutos or Sinessa, book is
it's just trash. Crap. I mean, it's trash anyway, but like
it is. But I mean, they're my lifelines.
It's lovely trash.
That's literally trash. Like they're like the three.
They're the props holding up the book, right? And actually, you could say the same with Daughters of Cain, right? Because I mean, Daughters of Cain aren't doing great, and if you took Marathi away, where are they going to be?
I think people sleeping on Daughters.
I don't know, man. They're not doing well. I don't know whether that's because a lot of top players have moved on to Seraphon.
And they have. They're not as sexy, right? If you took
not as easy win
and put him on Daughters,
well, he won't. He'll play whatever's the most broken thing out of the stuff he plays. So he's not going to play Daughters because Seraphon are better, right? So
yeah,
it's not a criticism of Jack. It's just that
no, not at all. No,
he happens to have his armies happen to be in the cycle of S tier at the moment. So it's an interesting point about Godhammer being 3,000 points, but. Yeah, I agree, Nick. I think they are a bit pricey, apart from Marathi.
I think I really like variety is a thing, right? People need to be able to pick their armies, and for some people, it is cool as all hell that they get to turn up and 50% of their army just got covered, right? To give that army has summoning, it gives you a break in the model painting perspective. I just like people are excited about writing with some mega gargants can only put 4 things in or whatever. I think it's important to have that amount of variety. Otherwise, everything is vanillaized. 60% win rate according to Goonhammer stats posted today.
Yeah, I don't look at stats. There's a reason.
Oh, come
people would tell me the game's fine because Flesh Eaters finished number 1 at a tournament, right? So
ran by an incredibly good player who's been about that good for at least a decade. Yeah.
That's got nothing to do with it.
OP.
Nerf him.
Yeah. Doesn't matter about the meta either or what he faced.
No. Or if, it's... basically, Nick, I think it's sad that Marathi... The Daughters Cain book seem to be like, do you have Marathi and Stalkers, and that's the army, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of variety there.
I have to remember that involves painting a lot less stuff as well. For new adopters, that is a very seductive prospect. Financially, it's all right, and time, it is more than all right and doesn't involve painting 700 women in their knickers.
So, getting back to the topic, are
Yeah.
the gods too powerful?
Kragnos saying
No, I think Archeon is like in Zinch is kind of abusive.
agreed, but that's not his fault. It's the book's fault.
I mean, they've like podiumed a lot, right? I mean, like it's
He's not doing it in Khorne though, is he?
no, but this is the problem with Archeon because like, do you change Archeon or do you change Zinch?
Don't get me started on Fate Dice. I remember a while ago when I was saying how good Zinch is and people were sleeping on it, and I got poo-pooed a lot. And they seem to be absolutely stomping it at the moment.
Yeah, Adam, it's a good point to say that overpowered characters for the rest, Frostlord and Stonehorn Mammoth at Destiny and Metal Cruncher is better than Motion East. Now you can stack after saves. Obviously, if after save stacking still sticks about. But yes, but I would say that like
if you want to take an example of that points value, you can use Be'lakor in Legion of the First Prince, where he's just passing his wounds off to things next to him. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it's cool. And I'd say that like, you know, even more crushers have gone up in stock. You know, in or War Clans. I mean, it's just a generic thing, but it's good. Obviously, like Sons of Behemat, they're not unique characters, but they're very strong. I think like and this is a bit controversial. I don't really care if I play Zinch Archeon. Right, it's fine. I can avoid him. I can chaff the board up. I know he's good. I know he's powerful. I know he's going to kill a lot. I know he's really hard to kill. I understand that. I play the mission. I play around it. I avoid him. Maybe I'll go for a kill if I get the opportunity. You deconstruct the parts. You kill the Chaos Sorcerer. You kill Kairos. You you kill the units. You outscore him. It's like it's a different game. I'm completely fine with that, and I've not had an issue playing against it. I've beaten it with Soulblight. I mean, it's a practice game. You know, a sort of a, but it was against a tournament player, and I felt that I was in the game, and I felt I had a game, which is the key point, really. I think the difference, the only things that I really don't like in the game is when you don't have, they're very easy to execute, and you don't feel like you've got an answer because your battle tome or your faction just doesn't have anything in it that can deal with it.
And that is, to clarify here, because it's incredibly important. It's a very good point, I believe, by Luke earlier. That is, winning the game does not mean killing it. It means winning the game, which is done on objectives. And those two are completely different things. If your opponent has spent half of their army's points on at thing, they have sacrificed quite a lot for that, which may allow you to win the game on the objectives. Disregard, you might never touch him, might never do a wound, or you might do 15 and he heals them all in a turn or something, but you can still win the game on scenario.
Yeah, and I think like as Andrew said, it's boring when it's as popular as it is, and I think I think if you play the same any army multiple times, it's boring. It doesn't matter if it's Archeon or not, because you're just playing the same game multiple times with different people, especially if it's a very formulaic way of playing. Like, for example, the Sylvaneth army with the Frostheart Phoenix that both Richie and Laurie were playing pretty much exactly the same way. Dictate for 45, 40, 50 minutes at the beginning of the game, go first, set it up, move here, teleport here, put woods down, set up here, do this, cast the same sequence. It's just the same. Like there's no difference, even in the way it was executed, until you got into what it's called the scramble phase. And I always find that Laurie could probably scramble better than Richie, but Richie normally did the first bit better than Laurie. So it's like it was all a bit up and down. But I kind of think that I don't mind so much, but if I played that 4 times in a row, I'd get annoyed about it. But it's just so different if I played Fyreslayers 4 times in a row, or Doors Kane 4 times in a row, or anything 4 times in a row, really. Because end of the day, it's like if the lists aren't varied enough that they're almost the same because they're the best list, then I think that's a problem. And I think maybe it highlights the internal book balance as an issue with some factions in Free, because the balance has been skewed by heroic actions and monstrous rampages and things like that. So it's skewed the internal balance of a book, making some things more viable than others. And I think with the change to a new edition, it's a massive undertaking to come out as in a balanced state is never really going to happen. I mean, Warhammer's never going to be balanced, guys. Let's just get real, you know.
Oh, if you want balance, play chess. Like,
Yeah.
if you want it to that degree.
But chess is boring, right? Because it's always the same game every game. I know some people are going, "Oh, I love chess," and it's not boring, and it's the best game ever, whatever, you know. But not
this is why we're playing with a game with dragons and stuff.
Yeah, and I like dragons. Eventually, we might be able to get them. But yeah, I think that it's that. It's almost that compound effect of multiple force multiplier of save stacking, destiny dice.
Gary's just said exactly the same thing.
Oh yeah, I've just seen it. Yeah, because it's that force multiplier where it's a bit like I've seen a bit of example with talking about MMOs. Sorry, it's a bit of a sidetrack, but where you're trying to balance classes in a massive multiplayer online game. If you've got your base class and you've got like your main rules, then you've got like talents, then you've got pots, potions, buffs, you know, this, because you've got so much stuff that stacks on top of the base. Depending on what those stuff are and the combinations of those things, it opens up so much more abusive combinations. Whereas if you have less add-on stuff and it's more on the war scroll, more on the foundation, that's easier to balance, right?
Yeah,
because it doesn't have all this extra stuff that bolts on and affects it.
Yeah, or you have like really rigid principles with the additional stuff. Let's say all the additional stuff, you've decided your own metrics. We're getting well nerdy now, but you're in the wrong place if you don't want it to get nerdy, guys. You've decided on all, you know, these are your core metrics. They're going to add up to 100, whatever that is, on things that you've decided add up to 100, and no one goes more than that or less than that, or you know, something you have core principles you adhere to make sure that for balance reasons, when you do introduce something, no one gets to exploit it on average more than others or something like that. But it's so hard to do.
Yeah, and I think the problem with super characters, to want a better word, is they've got a lot of their extra shit baked into their war scroll, whereas like other characters don't, because they've got the combination of traits and artifacts, which generally made them more powerful, right? So you take a keeper over Shalaxi because the keeper's more customizable to what you want in your list, or just better fundamentally on the war scroll because Shalaxi's trash. But you know, like you know, you know what I'm trying to say. Like you know, Vordry and a vampire lord on zombie dragon. There you go, some more rounded example. So Vordry is what he is. There's no baking in, whereas a standard Vlodst is customizable. Now they've both heroic, they're both heroes, so they both get all the benefits of being a monstrous hero. But I think that obviously when a super characters, there was in the old edition of the game, there were no buffs to being a monster or a hero
that you couldn't give to other stuff.
Yeah,
you know, you could put a spell on them, but you could put a spell on some infantry,
but there wasn't core basic abilities that only so they've been baked in, and I think that it's on top. And the problem with Archeon is, you imagine you've got a war scroll that can go in like 5 different armies.
I was just going to say this, like people saying about swapping his points for Nagash. How does Colm feel about that?
Exactly. Yeah.
We just recorded our Chaos one, and one of the things you mentioned in that so much is the cross. The cross stuff makes it difficult.
And it gets even harder with stuff like when you've got Beastmen and Slaves coalition units. How do you point those? Like, you know, do you just point them at the best example they can possibly be, and then just the other armies just suffer? Or there's set a precedent with Zangor where you've got 2 different points, one in Zinch, one in Beast. So I saw that before the FAQ today, there were people saying, well, I'll coalition in the Zangor from the Beast book because they're technically cheaper than the ones in my book, but they do exactly the same thing. And you're just like, but how do you point those? Because it was the same issue with Nighthaunt back in the day with Legion and Nagash. So you point Grimghast Reapers for Legion and Nagash, which then you're like, well, why are Nighthaunt being punished for Legion's abilities, which they don't have?
Further twist the knife for the poor Nighthaunt. Yeah.
So I think there's a fundamental issue when trying to bake in balance when you're cross-contaminating allegiances with war scrolls. And I think that's... I'm not saying it shouldn't be a thing. But
it's always going to be really hard to
do you... I mean, like, let's just be real, guys. It's a tough job, right? So And I think like Nick's talked about NPE, which is non-player experience, and I think that term's used a lot inappropriately. Because I think sometimes it's almost a sore loser term.
Yeah.
And
Or someone
it's
who didn't play the scenario.
yeah, and like non-player experience is subjective. So in my understanding of the term, I think for me, like the issue I have with Age of Sigmar, if I write a balance list within my battle tome and I turn up to a tournament, I want to feel like I can at least have a chance at winning a game.
Yeah.
Or I can think my way out of a situation, or I can try and play my way out. Even if the play is 5% or 10%, or it's a long shot, it's a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
It's a Hail Mary pass. I want to be able to take the shot down the field and try and get the touchdown to win the game in the last play. Like, it's not going to happen. It's, not everyone can have DeAndre Hopkins on the end of the ball, but at the end of the day, so I'm NFL references because season starts soon. I'm excited. But if you don't have the Hail Mary chance, like that game is not fun because you're just not experiences. Sorry, negative play experience. It's fine. It's a non-play, negative play. It's the same. But I think that end of the day, it's like and that's the issue I have with Severev, is that if you're playing a combat-based force, you can't even get to roll dice against him.
No, not optional.
There is no game there.
Some armies have only got Gorgons.
So basically you're going, is the Lumineth player going to make an error and put him somewhere silly
practiced?
on a thing that is so reliable that there shouldn't be a problem.
Well,
and you can ignore it.
Plays itself. Put it that distance away, and then move him that much away, and then repeat. Shoot something in the middle.
Yeah. And I think that it's a very kind of interesting point, I think, on are the gods too powerful? I don't think so, and I think they should be powerful. But
what about the question, should they have different points in different factions? Should Archon have a Khorne value, a Tzeentch value, a Nurgle value, and we play a complicated game anyway, right? Like someone already decided at some point that we should have multiples of 5 in the points, so we're already stupid. Should he have different points of values? Why?
Because I don't want to balance like 4 times the amount of scrolls.
But that means you can write his rules to be exactly characterful, not worry about it too much, and then you can plonk him down and you can be like, cool, Khorne version is 800, Tzeentch is 950, because it does make that much of a difference or whatever. I'm not saying exactly his values before anyone gets silly. And then Nurgle, because he's actually, he's about on par with Khorne, this much, and unless she's 220 points or whatever.
See, I knew you had an agenda. I knew you had an agenda.
But that's not that stupid, right? They've already done it for another unit. There's already precedent for something that has the same rules and has different points and different.
I know there is, and I kind of I just wish there was a consistency with it. I think personally, I don't really want to get down the point of, especially in Chaos, because Chaos is just a bitty faction. I think if you were disciplined
people
with
play
it,
the armies they play.
No, I get that, but I think if you were disciplined with it and just said, do you really want Chaos Warriors being pointed 5 different ways? Or
maybe they don't need to be.
Now the coalition, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you do it, it should only be for like Archeon. I just don't think it should be a fringe case. It's definitely a lever that could be pulled, but I'm not even sure it's the lever that they should pull. But if they will pull any lever, but
no, I get it. Like you could have, Kragnos could have points for Gits or other stuff if it was relevant, or maybe he's the type of piece where it's just not relevant because he doesn't, cast spells or can't benefit from enough stuff, or he's not in order or chaos, therefore he's just worse.
This is Kragnos you're talking about. Sorry.
Yeah.
I just zoned out.
He's it's all good. So it's not a worry there. He can have the same points. It's fine. He can have the same points, but yeah.
Does Kragnos just feel like not a god, right? Or am I the only one?
Oh yeah. So? Kragnos feels like your opponent's got Rendell mortals. Sorry, lol. Is slow.
Doesn't have an after save. Or he does.
He's slow. No, 2 up. two up
Armor.
armor save, which is obviously amazing. But he's
But
the
is it? But
slowest.
everyone got a 2-up armor save in the new edition, right?
Well, they have now.
With a reroll. And an after
Yeah.
save. And magic.
Well, no.
And fate
Well,
dice.
he's not in chaos, so he can't get a reroll.
Oh, right, yeah.
In the same way, this is how it like. So that maybe he's an example that wouldn't. He could just have the points in all the books he can be taken in, and they benefit from him in the same way because he is a bit of a blunt instrument. Whereas Mr. Spellcasty, triple heads can eat wounds back and can be in Zinch. Maybe he has different points values. Could be he just has 1 points value in Zinch and it's the same in the others. Only 2 points values.
Did I say lever or lever? Is this? I don't know. I watch too much TV.
It's his American football excitement. He can't contain himself.
I know. I can.
Sorry,
so yeah.
Anyway. I sidelined there. Is that
the? Sideline. There's another NFL reference.
Stop it, you.
Time out.
Is that the? Is that the gods debate? Is that covered?
I think so. I mean, let us know what you guys think in the description.
Absolutely.
I mean, we wanted to just have a chat. I didn't want to do anything too techy or too statty or anything like that. Because I think it's a useful thing to talk about. There's been a lot of noise online about ban them, don't ban them. Some tournament has banned them. That's completely cool. That's their stuff. It makes that event different and interesting. But then the people talk about NPE, but I don't think NPE is limited to gods. I think NPE is baked into the game in many different ways.
You could do way worse stuff turning up with one leader and the rest of your points in battle line. Yeah.
Which we haven't really seen anyone lean into it yet. I mean, all the stopping you pile in with the multiples to hit. And
still damn good, yeah. I got a story about that. I had a game recently.
Nurgle are, I think they're very, very stealth filth.
But they are. I went goblin.
They're obviously filth because they're Nurgle, but I think they're particularly they're particularly underrated at the moment. So
I had a backfield charge on a sloppy bile piper. It was filthy.
You don't want to get back charged in a sloppy bile piper, to be honest.
Sigvald won a bottom in that one. He was top all the way.
That sounded like the most horrific thing you could have said. You're like, got backfield charged in the sloppy bile piper.
He ended up dying before I could touch him because Bliss Barbs went OP. Says no one ever.
No, obviously 180 points of full amount of yeah.
So on the subject of Bliss Barb Archers meta roundup, are we?
Yeah, so I don't know. I know this is gonna rage you. So there's been people collecting top 5 finishes from events. So I know AS Shorts tweeted today he's updated his table, and you've got things from every event in US, Australia, UK, Denmark, Czech Republic, with what finished in the top 5, and it looks fairly broad and fairly spread out, but I don't really agree with the mentality of looking at a top 5 and going, oh, that must be fine.
You have to. What's fine? You have to say let's clarify this first. What under what intent are we looking at top 5s? Is it to see if the game is balanced? Is it to see that's interesting, like football won at sports today? Lol. What in what regard?
Sports
board. I'm a good grown up man. In what regard are we looking at these things? Because my main issue is one that you've already said, is people saying everything's fine while the house is on fire because some incredibly good player in a combat heavy, Gargant heavy environment went and smashed the poop out of people.
Yeah, so Gloom Spite come forth at Lost and the Damned in the UK. They're fine then, right? Don't need to touch them.
How many players of that event was it one day?
It's 5 games, 36 players. Went 4-1. For me,
happens.
It happens.
What's your point?
Throw enough shit.
Well done to the player.
Yeah.
Taking nothing away from the player. Could have played his tits off. Maybe lost that one game on a 1 in 100 chance as well. Maybe should have been 5 games. But
and I think that's the problem. Is you don't look. The problem with 5-round events, and that's really the only time you've got with 3-hour rounds now, you don't
Yeah.
really get that final cut to get the real meat and ball, and especially when you've got stuff like sports and things like that. And
Mhm.
it's a very
Same here.
hard thing to look at and say like, oh, who did you play? Did you go out the night before? Were you tired? Was this? Was that? What scenario did you play? What did you match up against? Did you just dodge the bad matchup? Did you like? There's
Oh,
so
was it
much,
JP playing
so
them?
many variables. Sorry, I
Was it,
don't know
and
who
it
it
was
was.
JP.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. Well, Gary said it might be, but that could be about something else. Too much going on.
so many variables, right? So,
Yeah.
what is clear from this?
What scenarios were rolled?
Well, I had no idea, but
Yeah.
what I've
Were some
seen,
banned?
again, I don't know. But I think the as well, like what I've seen at events, especially I was only talking from Carnage. It's the only event I've been to. A lot of games
Yeah.
never finished, right?
Oh god, round 2. Like
2 turns, 3 turns. I think
turns.
the Zinch player against
turns, that's-
Lisbon player at the on the table won. They got 2 turns in, and then they diced off a priority who won. And I think it happened at the Just Play
Yeah.
series as well.
Yeah,
So
it did. With Lumineth and Free Cities, I think.
and so yeah, because it was the Free Cities chariot spam, right? And then
Yeah.
and I think that was not the final round. I don't know anyway, but
No, it wasn't the final round. An ultimate, I believe.
and I think that you had like obviously like Tom won Nashcon with KO, right? So but that's kind of like an outlier. So if you look at like the chart, and I'll stick it up as best I can. It's a bit small, and I'm struggling to actually like
Link it
larger.
Link it in the chat, and then peeps can pop it up themselves.
Oh, that's a good shout.
Let's talk about chess clocks.
Let's not talk
practical
about
for our game, but
they don't work.
if you were playing it online, we'd talk about them. And I would argue they'd be a good thing if it was online. They did good things for Magic.
I hope that's the right link. You have to let me know. But I'll try and put it up as best I can, so it's not going to be ideal. It's going to be quite small, so you're probably not going to be able to read.
I got a wonderful multicolored thing, so it is the right thing.
Okay, good. So, I mean, you can see it by color, really, so it's probably useful. I mean, you could go look at this yourself, but basically, like you can see here, you've got Zinch here, Arcanum. There's 3 UK events in a row that have been won by Zinch. You've got Duplicitives, Arcanum, so Zinch are quite there. Seraphon, you've got Seraphon. You've got some Soul Blight scattered around. Lots of Suns, right?
Yeah.
Now, what I think we'll see is Sons of Behemat will start dropping off when people realise how to play against them.
Disagree, actually, interesting.
Okay.
And I think the list will evolve, and then people won't be able to beat them.
Or maybe the White Dwarf update. Maybe you're right. I haven't looked at it. So, you've got some Nurgle, not much. Sylvaneth, couple places. Some OBR. These are kind of outliers, I'd say. Lumineth seem to be all over the place. You got like Lumineth. So it's like quite a lot of Lumineth in there. We've got some KO scattered about, some Iron Jaws, some Gloom Spite. You know, it's kind of like Skaven. Yeah, it's all like a bit of everything. There's a couple Doc. Quite a few Doc in the top 5s. But it looks to me like Zinch, Seraphon, Suns are particularly dominant. Obviously, Feck, there's one outlier. So
yeah.
But I know it's really weird because like if you play like Seraphon versus Zinch in the last table, one of them's going to win, right? So the other gets knocked out. Whereas if you're playing like in the 6th, 7th table, and it's like I don't know Gloomspite versus Fireslayers, one of them is going to be in the top 5 if they win. But they haven't actually played one of those because you go 4 and 1, so you might have already lost to Seraphon, right?
Yeah.
But you might have played 3
or maybe you didn't
soft.
you could have got a low win first game as well, and still be at the bottom of your bracket, particularly in a large event. But you know, happens all the time. And
I think that's a really interesting point that the top 5 is not a great thing to look at in terms of balance of power, and that's why like almost like you almost need to look at the problem is it's not enough really data, right?
That
you
don't
get enough data. It is You should.
Yeah.
What I think you'd be more interested in is a distribution curve of events where you
Hmm.
see where books finish, like spread across a large event.
Would you
Like
chop off the top and bottom 5%? Would you
where you,
just look at the middle
it should
90 or something
naturally
like that?
do that
Or
anyway because you'll get a curve. So there'll be
yeah,
more people around. There should be more people evenly distributed, depending on the book. So you'll find that if this is the tournament ranking, and most of the Lumineth are in the top third, then their curve will be like that. And if they're kind of evenly distributed, it'll be like a bell curve. And if they're
yeah,
at a lower end, it'll be like that. So you'll be able to
yeah,
see from the shape over a spectrum of players and variables of matchup scenarios.
yeah,
It'll give you a better picture, but you'll need an awful lot of instances, and some of these factions are only represented by one or two people or at all.
yeah.
So like
It
you
could be
go
really
to a,
good. Like you could have one person who's just smashing it with
well, like take
a
the
niche
FEC
faction, and
example,
you end
right?
up, yeah, you end up with an 80% win rate stat for a country or something.
Because there's like 17 allegiances or 15 allegiances, I don't know,
Yeah,
something like that.
something
There's
around that.
quite a lot. So if you think there's 100 players, everyone represented what, four times?
Should
Like
be.
if something's very popular and there's like 20 of them there, if they're finished, you might see a couple in the top 10, but there might be a couple in the bottom 10, a couple in the.
Yep.
So you almost want to see the distribution. It's like Blood and Glory is always a great example where you've got 200 people. It's a really big group of people to get a proper distribution, but then it has to be 6 rounds or 7 rounds really for
And
Swiss
this,
to really
it's
work out.
we saw it's one of the ones. Well, you've always done well in them, but it was
Mm.
one of the ones where you were fighting up at the top. But I think I remember the scenarios that were rolled. Just a load of them were aggro first turn bias, and
Yeah,
there was one Blood and Glory where the top 30% of the field contained 90% of the Deepkin, and Deepkin were good at this point, but they weren't that good. That's one event completely skewed. All those guys like brought right up, taking nothing away from the players or the army or anything like that. You can so easily get a niche example even in a huge event, um, like super easily.
yeah. Um, I think it's it's an interesting state of affairs at the moment. I think it's still quite early, but I personally believe, and I'll probably get some heat for this. Obviously, like Archeon Zinch technically has taken a hit with the horror scroll change, with Eye of Sheeran change. It's not really much, but it's a little bit.
Not that matters. Yeah.
But I still think that Seraphon are one of the best armies in AOS right now.
Completely unsexily so, and this is why they don't get spoken about, because they just got a load of stuff that is a percent, let's say it's 10-15%, like better than the majority of equivalents in the game. Like they've got like teleporting, they got fast troops, they got wicked battle line, they've got enough stuff where you can turn up and incidentally half the damage of an entire army if it's damage 2 just by existing. Really good magic, summoning mechanic, like they don't not have much, but not like no one part of it is crazy over the top. It's not Archeon or an unbeatable magic phase or something.
I know Jack used Jack Armstrong won Justice series with Seraphon, and he was using the coalesced Thunder Lizard type stuff, and he had lots
Yeah,
of engines for healing, like multiple healing. So it's quite an interesting list design. I know when I played Mike Stewart, he had Thunder Lizard, and it's sort of leaning into using Seraphon, the Bastillodon beams and multiple shots and things
yeah.
like that, and the reduction of damage. And I think, yeah, it's a good point, Gary, that Seraphon are basically very adaptable.
I like Doc, but modern, right? Just
Yeah,
I can deal
I
with
don't
that. I
think
can deal
like
with that. I
I
can deal
don't
with
think Doc were adaptable. They were just overpowered,
that.
and they had Marathi, and they were like, and it
Yeah,
got to a point now where other stuff's either caught up or they've been pointed, or the hags have changed basically, which has reduced their power. So like, but Seraphon are kind of like they've got such a broad spectrum of different things that they can always be relevant, and it's kind of like when you've,
yeah.
and I think that like what I'd say Grace series is evidence of good design. Yes and no, because I think
No.
they are, although they're able to adapt to everything, they're also too good across the board generally.
On average, yeah. And they
So
got a load of things in their book as well. The more war scrolls
Yeah.
you have,
Width
the
and
more
depth.
chance you have that you can deal with this or that.
So they're wide and long.
They are wide and they are long.
Rather than just kind of like either like long or wide. Yeah.
A noodle. Feck are a noodle, aren't they?
And I think fundamentally you'd say that, like, you know, obviously like you had the old Gristlegore thing for back in the day. And that's the only thing about like Sons of Bearmat, right? So I don't know, like maybe they all finish their games, I don't know. But let's say, for example, they play a couple games, so they got like a couple turns in, they're not going to lose any models, right? And I think that obviously that shouldn't happen, but it does. We all know it does from tournaments playing, right? It all know it happens. And that's
especially
really,
at the moment.
And the problem is, it's like it's not really something you record because, like, you know, like, because a lot of people like they just finish their. It doesn't really, although it might even be in the thing, record the number of turns. Like people at the table, they just agree things out, or they roll a priority and they just decide, and they just, oh yeah, you win, I don't know, whatever. It doesn't really get captured, and I think that what I observed at Carnage was that games just weren't finishing, which will skew everything. Like skews all your results will get skewed by that.
It's good. Not only that, but it'll bias towards certain armies massively.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
So it's going to bias against Lumineth. You know, let's give him some props on the channel because we love him so much. But no, like Lumineth tend to they creep their victories late in the game.
No,
I think a lot of theirs is creeping late in the game from what I've seen on the table. So
no,
they
because
can be oppressive.
You can burn all your Aether Courts early, and there's no penalty later on. So like the couple turns you need to hold them off while you shoot with Sentinels, you've got all your Aether Courts and all your buffs that you go, I have double Aether Courts, you know, all out defense, blah 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 blah. Then you in the later turns they wouldn't have that. They just crumble in combat, and you've actually got across the table. You don't get to play those turns. So
okay, yeah, I can see that.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's so good. I mean, it can't work in our game.
It doesn't work.
I see why people talk about it.
I mean, how do you have to, like, because the thing is, you'll forget to actually swap it over, and you swap it over every time they've got to make a decision. Yeah. What about, you're going to redeploy? You're going to redeploy? You're going to redeploy? I mean, if you play OBI, you're fine because you can just leave it. But, and I think
it's a Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think, like, you know, they've added in. They've added in a lot of decision making, which just slows the game up, right? We talked about it on the other show.
People don't recall as time passed. People never recall decision making as time passed.
Because you're thinking as
actions. Well. Yeah, people record actions done and tangible things, not the concept of thought. Like, oh, I was having an internal discussion for exactly 2 minutes. Says no one ever. But someone rolled a lot of dice. Says everyone ever. So, yeah, I find discussions on top 10 super interesting. I think looking at something like this and using it as an indicative state of the balance of the game is mental. Yeah. I don't think that is. I think that's based in reason, mathematics, objectivity. You know, to the degree that can be applied to something like Warhammer or anything like that whatsoever. The questions you should be asking are, for example, not like what's in the top 10, but why is there none of this in the bottom 50%? Like, that's a good question. That's a baller question. Why on earth is like did no one of a low skill level take this army at this 200-man event? Like, why is there none in the bottom? Yeah,
I mean, it's like
bottom 30%. Oh, absolutely.
That's the other thing. Like, it's an assumed value, right? So when you get into, I don't know that like JP does a lot of stuff. I talk to JP quite a lot privately about this sort of stuff, and even when I know we went on Vince's show, we kind of, I might want to get him on to have a chat about stats. But
I love him on.
The stats can tell a story of how you present them and how you cut and slice and dice them, right? You can tell a story. I think that you kind of got to like you got to take the context into account when you look at this, anything like this. Like, so are the armies finishing high up because they're popular and there's a lot of them, or is it because they're particularly good, or because they're new, or because they're
is their kryptonite unpopular currently? Like, literally, there could be an army which, like, the latest new release is really good against this army, therefore it does worse. Like,
What it's
Sons
like,
of Behemoth are particularly good against X or Y, therefore they're going to be lower now. It's not their fault, it's Sun's fault.
it's like Lumineth, right? They don't like stuff that's fast and numerous. So like, but those armies aren't popular because those armies are not doing. Like, I think someone was saying like Bone Split is almost like the antithesis of Lumineth, and you're like, but you don't see many Bone Splitters around. I mean, I know there's one
Bone
Drakfoot list
Splitters
in the
are
top,
so anti-meta.
and
Like,
like
so
you
anti-meta.
probably
They're
wouldn't
also
play
getting
them
taken.
because you're 90 times at the time you feel like you're on the back foot, but then against Lumineth you probably find it great. It's a great matchup. So if you, it's a bit like there was a South Coast many years ago when Warriors of Chaos were in the heyday, and they were very, very popular. And there's Andy Avery took Orcs and Goblins with Gunline, Stomp, Anti-Armor Army, basically. And he played Bretonians and Chaos Warriors. That's all he played, 6 rounds, won every game, and won the South Coast.
Yep.
His army was so weak, perceived weak, but he won the event because one of the most popular armies, and Bretonians were not a popular army, he just lucked into those extra couple ones. Yeah, Foot of Gork, Troll Vomit, Doom Diver, and he played well. Not taking anything from Andy, he's a good player, but good player with a list which in the right matchup is very strong, and he got all the right matchups 6 games in a row. And in a 180 player event with 6 rounds, it's quite rare for that to happen, but it does happen, you know.
Yeah. I used to like I had a really good period and I skated off the back that I wanted to face the average meta, but not a particular meta. And I had a couple of events in amongst my really good period. I played like average Stormcast and lost and stuff when I wanted to be against, Daughters or Fire Slayers or stuff like that. I really wanted them. And when I saw a matchup for a weak army, like my heart had dropped. I get really worried. So yeah,
I
absolutely
remember
happens.
back in the day, I think it's like 6th edition, old school player that people probably don't know, but Michael Biggs, he was a very good player, and he took an anti-Demons of Chaos list in High Elves, and Demons of Chaos were like the boogeymen of the GTs, which didn't have any comp. The old GW ones, they were the only like event that didn't comp, and you literally saw a third of the field take in demons, and another probably
Or the exactly same
20,
army.
yeah, with a slight variation on what Siren Song of
Demons,
the
Dark
stuff.
Elves,
Yeah,
Dwarves.
yeah, and like you had Thoric Ironbrow where there was 15 Thoric armies, and they were all I think 8 in the top 10 and stuff like that. I mean, it was an estate. So I know people playing AOS now, you're in it. It's a lot better than what it used to be. And I think that, like, and this fundamentally is the issue thing I was trying to touch on, Nick, is what you touched in the chat, is that there is not enough data or to weed out the variables because there's so much mess in the stats that you can't make meaningful conclusions from simplistic stats. If you've got your feet on the ground at the event and you're walking around looking and see what's going on and you're talking to people and you're like you're experiencing it in the weeds, you can make more meaningful decisions on where the meta is at in that environment. Obviously, you can't talk globally because obviously you can see on the chart UK there's a lot of Zinch and Seraphon, whereas in America it's not. So it's a different environment. But I think you can't use stats in that way because it's not. There's just not enough data, and it's you're never really going to
Especially
have
when we've
enough
got this
data.
many scenarios and stuff. Like we don't even have a restricted enough set of core principles of play in matched play that there isn't going to be epic variation. Coincidentally, 3 large events could roll 3 of the same 5 scenarios. That could completely skew stuff. What are you going to do with as many scenarios have we got?
Yeah,
And we didn't even start off judging the same stuff. Like, what?
and I think like fundamentally the issue I have with these, and I know it's hypocritical because we did our own tier list, is that you have to expect there are things that are better than others, like in the generic tournament environment. There are, if you look at what's being taken and what you're likely to face, there is some stuff that is slightly better than others. Right, that's definitely a thing. But it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy if people follow it as like a gospel thing of what they should collect or play.
Oh yeah.
So if people make decisions about what they take to tournaments based on the meta tier stat, it's going to skew the results. And this is why doing a tier list. So our tier list was completely subjective. There was no data behind it whatsoever. It was completely opinion. Because I don't think there isn't any data. So it's like, well, there might be a little bit of data now, but it's still not enough. So it's got to be a subjective thing, right? based on my experience and what I think. If people then look at that and make decisions like I'm going to play this, and some people say like Lumineth aren't S tier. I'm like, well, they are S tier. Why aren't they winning events then? I said, well, because Seraphon are S tier and they're just better, right? So they play Seraphon and they because the Seraphon Thunder Lizard list coalesced is a nightmare for Lumineth. It literally just beats them. So they've got a foil in the S tier that's popular. So
equally, teach Archeon if Be'lakor is prevalent. You know, let's shut down that 50% of your army in like a time period where a lot of people aren't getting to finish. What if you spent 50% of the game with your opponent's 50% of their army not being active? That's going to skew stuff.
I don't know, Griff. I don't know what that is. That a 40k meta watch arc? I wouldn't have read it if it's 40k. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about in that comment, but
if it's 40k, not clear.
But yeah, so I think like what I'm trying to say with the state of the meta is that like I think personally like there are some very, very powerful things out there. Like Zinchakion is an obvious one. I think Coalesce Seraphon is an obvious one. I think your
Sons
of Bearmat is an obvious one. Obviously, they pretty much all are Taker tribe, right? There's a couple outliers, but they're pretty much all Taker, which is the obvious tribe for objective play, which is how you win games. It's never been about killing stuff. There's no kill points.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Beast Pack is all about monsters, and you get extra points for monsters doing it. So having more monsters is kind of a thing. So that's kind of
pick the indestructible ones because they don't give them. They take them, but they don't give them away. Take it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they. You get what you're going to give away 1 or 2 average a game frequently with Suns. Very rare that you lose 3 big dudes if you are taking big dudes. That is. But you're gonna anyone where you're like, well, I need to run there and one of them's a monster, or I need to kill something and it was a monster, then you got that one too. So
yeah, and I think what basically with Andrew's comments said, I think there should be a cooling off period before new books can be played at tournaments, or at least the stats ignored. I just don't think we should be looking at the stats like we are and using them as a way to test, benchmark, point, or make decisions about the game's design. It's just not a good enough set of information to make any informed decisions. If you're trying to make decisions about something, like in business, you need to have a proper understanding or a proper data set. If you've got a bad, messy data, dirty data, you don't make business choices or decisions on it. It's the same. You should not be making decisions based on the data. So I don't want to see the game like stuff like tournaments go in. Like I had someone comment to me and say, why have you given Nighthaunt and stuff extra points? Because that's going to skew the data and that's going to upset this and that. And I'm like, well, the whole point of doing it is to is to encourage people to take those armies because we know that it's a problem. I don't need to wait 6 months to see the data to understand that Beasts of Chaos needs some help. I can tell you right now they need some help. I don't need to collect any data.
Megball. They're still going to be struggling.
And I'm like, yeah, I know that. Like you could say, well, you haven't got any evidence to prove it. I said, I do, because there aren't any. Like, where are they? They're not there.
They're not in attendance. Period.
Like
period.
So I don't. And if I give them 200 extra points, 500 extra points, 1,000 extra points, and they suddenly win an event, fine. But I don't see the issue to start being led around by the nose, because I had the same issue at Blood and Glory where it was in the last round and there was 3 of us playing Legion of Nagash. So I had Sacrament, I said someone else had Sacrament, and there was another an army. I can't remember if it was Sacrament as well. We played in the last round. It's Blood and Glory, the last scenario, which is you auto win turn 3. If you win the flip flop between 2 and 3, you basically win. Top tables, I'm playing Tom Maudsley. It's a bad matchup for me. He's got Daughters of Cain. I win the flip flop. I played for it. I get lucky. I win the event. Right?
Yeah.
I played for. Both the other Legion armies also flip flopped. End up on the top 3. Right. So top 3 is Legion, Legion, Legion. 2 weeks later, we have a meeting to have a points adjustment. Grimgas went up. Direwolves went up. Necromats went up. Arkham went up. Everything went up that was in my list. My list went up by 320 points, and then didn't see Legion and Nagash for a long time. And was it because they needed to be adjusted because they were too powerful, or was it just in that environment they were good players using them, and they just happened. I think it was Tony Moore, myself, and I'll get this wrong. Might be Liam Jordan. Sorry if I've got that wrong, and I don't mention you. I do apologise. You basically
Only a 1 in 8 chance
a
that you
one
all got
event.
50-50.
But then if you looked at the distribution within the event of where armies finished, there was plenty of Legion Nagash in the bottom. There weren't any daughters in the bottom 50. So that's what I'm sort of saying about misleading stats looking at top finishes. And I think it's kind of worrying if it becomes a precedent to, because you're going to have to, you're almost going to create this false meta of adjustment. Because, like, you know, it's like going, oh, FAQ won, so why don't we put points up because he was using these 3 war scrolls? It's like, well, no, but it's just an outlier. You can't.
Better make the undead ally giant 590 points because he's used them. No, it's absolute insanity to do stuff like that. You know, like it's like results based analysis versus decision based analysis. Like, did you make the right decision and still lose? Yeah, well, it wasn't the wrong decision then.
Yeah,
it's just a topsy-turvy upside down.
Did you make the wrong decision but rolled out of it and just ended up winning anyway?
Yeah, no, it was the right decision.
It's the right decision then, wasn't it? Because you won. It's
took a 1 in 20, took a 1 in 20 chance and won. Got a double 6 charge, turn 1, after 6 in my run roll, did something super risky, and then got a 1 in 6 chance of gobbling something in a oneer with Archeon without Fade Dice or something like that. Like, was that the right decision? Absolutely not. Did you win the game because of it? Absolutely yes.
And you see it in
people
poker,
have real difficulties.
Have you ever watched poker? Like, they do Texas Hold'em, and you look at the odds, and they do the right decision, right? They make the right choice. They go, right, well, this is odds on. They go all in, and the guy flops the nut card on the river, and he loses it all.
Yeah.
And you're like, and you're like,
would you make that decision again?
You'd still do the same thing every time.
It was the right decision.
It's the right decision, but it didn't pay. And it's like, I think, and fundamentally, like, for me, I mean, this is my personal opinion. Decisions about what should be pointed out or up or down should be about trying to address balance of representation and enjoyment at the table. So, like,
mid tables as well. Let's not just look at the people on the top tables.
I wouldn't even look at the top. I would be looking
that's the other huge.
I would not only be just saying, like, what do we need to take off the top? I would be like, what do we need to add to the bottom? Which seems to be the thing that's missing, right?
Yeah, let's just discuss people who, probably have some job that involves stats, have played the game for 20 bloody years, own 17 armies. Like, let's just carry on pumping up that list, and let's only regard what the ones of those that had a lucky enough run to win, as well as being good. Let's only judge what they had, and let's base all decisions off that, or all analysis off that. It is absolutely nuts and mental, and people are, oh, like that one dude got in there, so this must be fine. Or like, my army hasn't featured in a top 10 for these 3 events in my country. Maybe it's less popular in your country.
I mean, or
the other side of that, suns are so prevalent in the States. It is absolutely nuts, and it makes complete sense because super combat-y in your face armies have always been particularly popular. Like, Khorne has been overrepresented in America since day dot.
Not in this list, they're not. What's done in there?
Not in this.
Khorne did a beast by bin, mate. Oh wait, there's a beast army. No, they're fine. Siege World, beasts come forth. Well, that's fine then. We don't need to worry about them.
12 players, 3 rounds, or whatever. No,
it is 28 players, 5 rounds.
Yeah. But yeah, like, exactly that. Like, it's mad. Let's talk about, like, or if the discussion is about maximizing enjoyment, why on earth are you having a maximizing enjoyment and player experience discussion based on a minimal set of stats? Like what type of absolute hypocrisy or idiocy is it to be like, okay, let's look at a minimal representation and apply a approach which is meant to be about maximum enjoyment to the most people? Like, are you what? Just what?
But I think, like, Jack Geiger's made a good point there. Is that he's got a saying: it's once is a fluke, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a trend, with the idea being you can't make decisions on limited data, and I'm like, yeah, I agree. And I think Gary, you're
Yeah,
right
mate.
with Severov. So you can handle him in your lists, and you still hate him. I play Def. What do? I don't have any shooting. I could put a catapult in OBR, sure, but like I just can't get to him, right? So like, I and I think like this is a personal decision for me. Like I've treated AOS a little bit less seriously than I'd used to in Old Hammer. And I think the reason for that is because I know there's always going to be something that seems to be like Vanguard Wing, your even when I played Gary with his Sequitur spam coming
And
back list, or you know Jack winning the Masters when in MoComp when you know Saurus were at
Source was
half a
like
point,
20 points.
where they were like half a
Yeah.
point, they reduced them by 50% of their cost because there was only a 20-point scale. Me winning with a compendium Tomb Kings because they were busted. It almost doesn't matter. It doesn't count, and it's like, are you having fun and are you enjoying what you're doing? And I think that's why I'm painting Iron Jaws at the moment, because I just want an army that's not. I enjoy using my OBR, but I found that the time pressure on the game is too much with like how resilient they were. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
go. Well, I'll go more high impact, low model, and just try and get my games done. And I go to tournaments to
Yeah,
socialize and
exactly.
enjoy the
Cap
hobby
yourself
and
at one
stuff. And it's
horde or
not
something.
really about winning, because like I'll be honest with people. Like if you want to take a competitive game seriously and be a good, I'm good at something. I'm a good competitive player. Then the game needs to be at a point where skill matters more, and I don't think it matters as much right now. Just my
It's
2 cents.
really like there's what's there 1,200 war scrolls or something like that. Like
Oh,
balance that.
I couldn't even tell you. I know when I was
What?
doing it, when I was doing all the points when they weren't official points, I was at 700 lines in the spreadsheet, but that was 5 years ago. So
Yeah. And then
whatever.
balance that. What does that mean? Does it mean balance within its own book? Does it mean balance within its own Grand Alliance? What do you compare it to? You have like super super tricky stuff. I do think the discussion that are being had are ridiculously focused on what's happening at the top tables, though. I think people should really question, unless it's what won because you want to chat about what won and that's it. Um, Trying to get more meaningful data from that involves some jumps that are based on complete fallacy. It's just not. It's not smart,
No.
and it's not going to lead to anywhere particularly good either. And yeah, like we should be. If there's a goal, it should be like, does everyone feel they're contented with their army and still have an enjoyable time? Not is it the best thing, but that's why we've done what we've done for FaceHammer. Also, if you are going to change something, don't change so much you don't know what's going on. Our changes were fairly conservative, I would say,
Minimal,
and we didn't want to
really.
double hit anything. Yeah, you don't want to change something's rules and its points and then have it in addition where something else has changed anyway. No, goat trick. Well, people weren't taking goat trick. Let's put his points down. Let's also pop him into an edition where he can heal himself for the first time ever. Sweet.
Well, I think that's the
You know,
problem with like AOS 3, and I can't really talk too much about the process, but you've got so many moving parts to try and balance, and the picture when you make decisions about what's in the books or in the rules, or it's not at the same time. It's not like you're just sitting there and planning everything out and going, that's what we're going to release, and it gets made. They're all at different times because
I
there's
guess made
scheduling,
instantly.
right? And there's
Yeah.
production and there's shipping and there's and so you're trying to understand what the final picture will be without. It's like having
In
four
the
pieces of the
future.
jigsaw, and you haven't got the rest of it, and you're like, well, where's it going to
No.
look like? And you could kind of guess,
It's not magic. We're not releasing
but
sets.
no,
We don't know everything that's going to surround everything
exactly.
at any given period because we specified it.
And
Yeah,
it's almost like,
impossible.
I don't know if they did that with Underworlds, but I imagine they design all the Underworlds warbands for the cards in a
In
release
blocks.
in blocks,
Yeah,
and then they release them and they stagger the releases out. And I
exactly.
just
Yeah.
don't think it's not really practical with the way that Warhammer's always been. I mean, I don't know. I'm only guessing. So, but it's those things. It's like fundamentally, I think as a player, you need to decide, like, do you want to meta chase the filth and accept that your army's going to be invalid? And I'm my personal journey is I want to find something that's in the middle top that can compete but isn't the most popular thing, because I don't want to play something that the other person groans. So I won't want to play Zinch Archeon. Now, I know there's a lot of people talking about aesthetic, and we said it on our show, like on our beginner shows, it's like buy the models you love. Like, I
Yeah,
love the Zinch
absolutely.
models. I love Zinch. I think it's
Want
a
to do well for your
great
dudes.
lore. I love it. I love the insidious nature. I love it. I love all the background of Zinch. The Gaunt Summon's an amazing model.
Even Fate dice, if overpowered, are perfect for
I have
thematically.
I had the army and I started doing it, and then they were so abusively popular, and the way they were being played, I just didn't. I sold them, and I've every time.
This is the period when they went up to 2,800 points after points changes.
I can't. Probably, but
Yeah, it was
I was like,
biggest jump in AOS history.
I can't. I can't play that army because, and it's a bit like the Sinesh, right? I took the Sinesh to ETC. It's a different thing. I know they're busted. I'm taking to ETC for a reason. I sold them. I didn't want to play them. I didn't want to go to normal events and run like triple keeper pretenders and all that kind of trash. I didn't. What's the point? Like, it doesn't. It's not. It's like Gristlegore Feck. I'll play Blister Skin. I'm not going to play Gristlegore because I don't want to. I know that that's probably going to get changed or fixed or overcompensatedly fixed, where it gets battered too hard, like, you know, Stonehorns when Battle Brew went
The
away,
triple
and
threat.
it was like the triple hit. There were points
Perfect
went up,
example.
Battle Brew went away, and the Stone Skeleton
And
changed.
rules, yeah, rules changed. Gary mentioned that with his KO just. I was going to jump in and say it. Like the triple hit is the perfect example of why you should be conservative. Like, change one thing, because you don't like, just change one. That's fine. Then if that doesn't work, maybe revert that and change the other, or try changing two.
Yeah, and Andrew, you're right. You can just struggle away with some army, but there can be some armies you could be the best player in the world with, and you're going to lose to people that aren't as good as you, purely because of the mismatch, and it's very
Turn up with
frustrating.
Beastmen against Lumineth, and you show me what that army's meant to do against that
I think
army.
Beastmen
Like,
are actually
what on
quite good
earth
against
are you meant to
Lumineth. Ironically,
I don't know.
according to someone, they said that they're quite good, but I wouldn't know. But you have to get there. That's the problem. You have to get through the other armies to get to the Lumineth players, right? That's the.
Yeah.
I mean, not just picking on Lumineth, but even like any army, like, you know, like Zinch Archeon, what you do, like, you just lose, right? So, I don't know. Like, I think as a player, you've got to make the choice what you want to do. I would say that, like, the meta is interesting, but I struggle with Warhammer now to
Stuff like this. So, right, you're going to an event and you're really worried about changing your list in a certain direction, which by definition, let's say you're intent to turn up with the best thing. You've written the best thing, and then you're like, oh crap, shall I tweak it to deal with these two things that are really popular at the moment? At that point, you're making your list worse in a well-rounded sense. You're also probably less experienced with it at that point. Then you have to, all of these things have to happen to make that the right decision. You have to play the army. You have to play the army with a player that is a good enough skill quality that it matters. And you have to play the army with a player with a good enough skill quality that matters in a scenario that is in his favor rather than yours. And then dice have to also go not in your favor, in his favor, possibly. And once you add those up, you end up with like a 1 in 50 chance or something. If you landed on that table with the player, you know, and I don't know what the odds are of playing that player in. So, yeah, you know, 1 in 300 later, you change your list for something that's probably not going to happen, and you were 5% worse in your other games. It's just you shouldn't do it. Like, I think a lot of the time, if there's something you think that is going to be a real struggle for you, you just turn up and you roll the dice, and the player might be worse than you, the scenario might be helpful for you, and dice are still involved. And you can still take a 1 in 8 odd, you know, 3 times in the game that could get you lucky and win, and then you've got 3 chances for that. So yeah, that's my thoughts on tailoring lists.
Yeah, I get that, but I think sometimes there's a little bit of, like, if there is a very, very popular thing like Sons of Behemoth, I think you almost have to think, like, how do you deal with Sons? If you don't have the DPS, then like, you know,
if it doesn't change your list too much.
Yeah, I'm not saying
really
like completely fundamentally
for that.
designing to beat one thing. I just mean that trying to balance your toolbox so at least you've got a tool. So you might,
an option.
You know, like with Severith, like you need something that can shoot over 12 inches that can actually kill him in a round.
Yeah.
or charge more than 12 inches. If you don't have any of those two things, you ain't getting him. You ain't doing anything about it. Nothing. And like that's the
maybe
issue
like,
I have.
okay, well, I'll put Sinessa in because it's kind of 50-50
Yeah.
whether I take her
Which,
or
because you've got that option.
Contorted Epitome.
And you think Sinessa over the Contorted is probably a good choice because he's popular right now. Yeah, he's so hot right now. He's big in Japan, whatever you want to say. But you can take him out with Sinessa. Good option. OBR probably gonna have to put a catapult in just because of that model. Don't want to play catapult. Probably gonna have to. Would I play Soul Blight? What am I gonna do about him? Not a lot.
Fingers in that case, I think.
Like just swamp the board and make me can't move.
Turn up with your best game.
Just don't care.
And cross fingers for being a better player and scenario. Yeah, and then maybe turn up to the event and not face him once.
And I think it's scenario dependent. Like when I take an example of my OBR when I played against him in that scenario, he was oppressive because it was the feral for a burn the 6 objectives. If I play him in 3 objectives blob in the middle, I'm like fine. I'm survived by a blob on the middle. I just exist and I win, right? And it's that completely different experience purely on scenarios. Like you say, it's the compound factor, and I think that's the problem with people's skewed opinion when they don't go back and retrospectively analyze the actual circumstance at the table. Because you could say that in that game, Luminef beat OBR in the same armies on a different mission. I could beat that army.
Same players.
With the same players, I could, any given
same
Sunday,
dice, same players,
It's like when the underdog wins, it happens, right? And it's like, how do you capture that because you don't know unless you're there, and it's like it's almost like seeing when you look at like scores from a football match or something like that, and I'll use like NFL analogy again. So you look at results of an NFL game, and it's like like 24-7. What you don't really know is that actually it was really close up until the fourth quarter. The other quarterback got injured, or so their offense crumbled, and they kept turning the ball over, and then they scored all in the last quarter. You know that if you deep dive the stats, but if you just look at the result and the score, it looks like one team smashed the other team, and that's completely not the case. It was a bit of bad luck, an injury, and that's the kind of thing that you don't have that level of data with Warhammer.
Yeah,
you have that level of data with American football, with baseball, because it's all captured. Like they know, you always watch, if anyone watched any American football,
and the rules the same in every game.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly, and they don't get FAQ'd, right? Maybe they get exchanged of committee. I don't know what the system is, but basically, like, you get the issue where I've lost my train of thought now. What you didn't know, so like you get this issue where basically you can't tell the reasons why that thing happened because you can't deep dive. And
watching a replay of the
analyze
game.
it in Warhammer. You don't know. You don't know what happened at that table. You don't know that there was an argument
data
about
points
a rule.
Other than the finish of the game.
They played a rule wrong. And both players didn't say anything and they got through the game. It was not cheating. They just played it wrong. They got to the end and the result would have been different if they would have remembered a rule or forgot a rule. And it's an honest mistake. It's not cheating. Just both people forget because there's so much to remember. They'd only got 2 turns in. They agreed the outcome. They rolled a dice for blah, 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 it's like, it's like you just don't, you can't get that information. But with like other games,
to question your sources. What happened?
Yeah, it's captured. Like you have that level of detail. If you ever watched an NFL game, they'll come up with a really random stat like this is the 500th touchdown in the first 20 seconds. On a Tuesday, when it's been snowing, not on Tuesday, because they don't play on a Tuesday, but you get the idea. In this arena since 1958, and you're like, who on earth has been able to capture that and come up with a stat like that? And it's only because they've got so much data. They've got a big, broad spectrum of data, and there's very fixed variables that do not change. Warhammer's not like that. You don't have that information. It's not captured. It's not recorded. You don't have it.
Acting on these top 10s is like believing that makeup advert that tells you that 70 women out of 100 said that this thing with pearls in made them, made their skin better.
How many of those armies had the choice of first or second turn? How many of those armies got a double turn? How many of those armies didn't get a double turn? How many armies got the choice to remove the objective? How did that affect the results? We don't know.
How many of the players playing the armies remembered about the choice to remove the objective? Yeah, I guess that's kind of the general gist of it. But maybe leading on from this in a future one, we can discuss what to do in terms of analyzing your own games or something like that, because I find it particularly surprising very frequently when people talk to me about their games, and I just don't think that they're measuring the right stuff. Never mind
No.
remembering the right things or approaching it in the right manner.
Well,
Like,
the first thing is to record what happened. Now,
yeah,
that means either have a little book where you write down like what you played, who you played, the points each turn, who won with priority,
yeah.
or what
Pictures are
I
good
like
too.
to do, take photos. Like
Yeah,
take a
pictures are
photo,
great.
and then like if you've watched our tournament report from Carnage where I showed the pictures, I take that wasn't. I generally take pictures of games because I like to look back at it and think about those decisions and that thought process at that time, because then I can decide, was that the right choice, was that the wrong choice, did I do this, did I do that, and that's just like, it's like personal improvement of your decision making process. It doesn't mean that, you know, and like even I said, looking back on that Luminef game, like at the time, I was pretty down on the experience. I don't think there's anything I could have done. And then like looking back at it, I was like, well, I could have probably played more aggressively, pushed up in a line, not piecemealed my army, you know. So there was stuff I could have done. So,
Yeah,
and I
another good
think,
point by Gary. Some players go to the top whatever they play. Yeah, just
yeah,
because
100%.
Tom Maudsley's won something with Nighthaunt in their lowest of low points doesn't mean that they're suddenly broken. Tom's just still a
No.
good player.
But I think data and stats are interesting. They create a discussion point, but let's not be led round the nose because data is a hot topic that everyone likes and
No,
goes, oh, isn't it interesting? We finally got some stats and spreadsheets. It's like,
well,
yes, but they're not really at a state where you can actually make meaningful decisions on the game, in my opinion.
yeah,
So I'm hoping it's not going
no,
to be a
drawing those.
driving force for the rules and the points changes, because honestly, I just don't think it's a good enough data set.
No, basing your decisions on that is like believing health and beauty industry advertising, or like, oh yeah, I'm going to drink that protein powder, I'm going to become Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sweet, that's the same level of mental adequacy, in my opinion. Just not relevant.
What you're saying? I can't just like can't be Arnie. That's it. I'm not feeling that.
Yeah, if you start drinking
Come
protein
on.
shakes and that's all you do, yeah.
I think we've talked a lot, probably more than we should have
Call it
done.
there.
It's late.
Yeah.
And basically just play what you want to play and try and enjoy your process and find what works for you. If you enjoy Zincharkion and you like the cutting edge and that's your thing, cool. Do it and be hated. No, I'm kidding. Do it and just enjoy what you're doing. If you want to play Beast and try and find the golden ratio that gets you the 1 in 4 win or 2 in 4 win and then the 3 in 4 win, like some sort of, you know, underdog comeback story, or hold on for dear life until you think they might actually become good in the meta, then despair when everyone jumps on the bandwagon and I've been playing them for 10 years, get off my army, which is you see all the time.
Some FAQ players enjoyed it, some Slash players enjoyed it, so it will happen. New books will come at some point.
Yeah. Appreciate everyone sticking around listening to us ramble with opinion and no real objective data to back up our opinions, but you know,
but none exists anyway, so it doesn't matter.
They're just our opinions, and you don't have to agree. That's completely cool. And you can let us know what you think in the comments below. But you know, hopefully it was an interesting discussion for people. The chat's been going pretty well, so it's good to see a lot of conversation in there. So
thanks, guys. Proper quality engagement, like really, really reasonable, well put shit. Massively appreciated, especially on the internet. You should be proud of yourselves. This is not meant to be a thing. So good job.
And if you want more of it, join our Discord, subscribe so you get more videos and stuff like that. I've got to say that for the algorithm gods, or you know, our stats will go down. And if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, because that says that other people should watch it, or tell your friends. But yeah, hopefully that's all good. And coming up with extra content, we will be doing obviously Battletome reviews when they are a thing. FaceHammer GT is soon. It's a couple weeks away. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yes, it's actually 2 weeks away. I will be doing pictures and some videos. They won't be out on the event because I'm there, but I will put them into video and we'll do like a show and talk about it after the fact. I might put a couple little videos out, but nothing too crazy because won't be able to. But I want
Do
to
some
enjoy being
walkarounds and
there.
hot tables or something like that. That's
Yeah,
quite doable, I think. So don't expect crazy production values, but we'll be able to walk down. So this matchup is interesting. This is the top tables. This is cool. Say hello to this person or whatever. So that can definitely be done.
yeah, 100%. So we'll try and get some content out if we can, and then obviously I will have footage to do retrospective content. Podcast wise, still got a massive problem with the website, so not anytime soon, I'm afraid. Yeah, I'll look at it. But anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you all again soon. And yeah, cheers.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for joining in. Bye.
See ya.